Fang needs to go through 150 years of Qi tempering stage, 200 years of foundation stage, 500 years of golden elixir stage, 1,000 years of spirit birth stage, and then the spirit gifting stage. By then, he will definitely no longer want to live, but he must make a complete breakthrough on the day of the upper limit. If he dies before that day, he won't be reborn. He's been held hostage to the system of the Wailing Sage. It gave him all the qualities to be on top of the world, but he has to stay in the shadows all the time. Perhaps it was done so that the world would have its first homegrown cultivator. In his past life, he was a homebody, but his soul was possessed by a dying beggar. He is now an outer disciple of the Heavenly Throne sect and aspires to become a wielding life sage. But this world is so unusual that he would love to see it. In 6 years, he's reached the 4th step, the pace of the most mediocre student. But for him, it's all about stability. The one who survives wins. After countless years, he will definitely reach the peak. His palm touched the wall. A secret passage in the wall opened before him. He thinks that maybe then he can go home. If that's the case, then however long the wait is worth it. But so far, there is no benefit to these dreams. He has an older brother to take care of his parents, and he needs to take care of himself right now. Feiyu World, Heavenly Throne Sect territory, Fang's courtyard. It's time for him to sign up for some classes again. He learns a little bit of everything to stretch his progress. Otherwise, he will accidentally make a premature breakthrough. But then he heard his name being called. It was Wangwan Yuelong, who at the 4th stage of tempering had slain a beast at the 6th stage. He was telling Fan to come down and stop flaunting his mid-level body lightening technique. Wangwan Yuelong asked him when he would teach him the body easing technique. After all, if he developed it to the highest level, he would be able to fly even faster than the Heaven Rider technique. Fan replied that he should train less in attacking techniques so that he could have time to develop his body ease. Wang Yulong replied that if he didn't develop attacking techniques, he wouldn't be able to do anything when he met a ferocious beast in the forest. Fan told him not to go into the forest. He wonders why such a talented disciple always favors the path of cowardice. He does not even go beyond the influence of the sect, and he chooses the safest of tasks. 3 months ago, someone shouted that some untamed beasts had escaped from the beast control department. Wang Yulong sat wounded. The monster wanted to attack him, but before that time they were all killed. Fan appeared and asked if everything was all right, and whether he can get up. Wangwan Yuelong asked if he could teach him his deadly technique. Attack class magic spells are very difficult to fully master, but he so easily combined 3 spells and released them in one blow. He doesn't understand his plans for his life. The other disciples talked about how Master Zuo from the martial department would give all the lectures of the training hall. His disciples have all their problems with attacking techniques solved. This master had reached the golden elixir stage in only 50 years. Fan asked, "Why learn attacking techniques when you can learn defensive techniques? After all, surviving means winning." Wangwan Yuelong replied that he himself has top-level attack techniques. The best defense is an attack. Fan said that he could go to his lectures if he wanted to, and he would find something else to do. He looked at the techniques he had already passed, namely the wind riding technique and the beast taming basics. Heavenly Rider seemed uninteresting, and there was no money for forging fundamentals for the entire course. But he was drawn to the use of healing plants and alchemy. He came to sign up for the course. She replied that the course is 3 days long, 10 lectures in total. The Jade spell plaque is a gift, and the cost of the course is 50 spirit stones. There are only 3 places left. He didn't even earn 100 spiritual stones in a year of doing the sect's tasks. He would have to pay off most of his annual income. She said that if he was going to study alchemy, there was no way to go anywhere without their course. Since it was the basics, the tutor of the alchemy department wouldn't go into detail about healing plants. It had to be learned on his own. He replied that he does. He left, regretting having spent as much as 50 spirit stones. The girl said that he was just another outsider student who was wasting his time trying to achieve something. It was a waste of time to go into alchemy without money, and he was tearfully parting with such a sum. At the evening market, he hopes his investment will pay off. Uncle Jiang came in and said that it was Fan who trapped him. He asked if he had come to see little Yun. The guy replied that he wouldn't let a fly pass by unnoticed. The man asked when he would give the bride price. The little girl cries every day to let her go to him. The man said, "Gee, what's the big deal?" The girl asked if she could be his wife. He replied that he would raise the money to buy her back, and they would be married immediately. He didn't understand why they were being serious. After all, he was just joking. Guy said it was time for him to go home. Cultivators are not advised to be among the laity for long. The man replied that he had already sent word to her. The girl came running and called him husband. She hugged him. He asked her to loosen her grip, for she was strong. He told her he was just kidding. But the man replied that a real man doesn't mince words. The girl replied that according to the traditions of their village, if the bride and groom exchanged gifts as a sign of engagement, they were destined to be husband and wife until death. She brought him a gift to mark their engagement. He replied that he was just giving her a toy to distract her. It was not an engagement gift. The girl replied that she didn't care. She is his wife. He was already stuck here because of the system. Only the local village traditions were the only thing he lacked. Feiyu World, Heavenly Throne Sect, outside Shu Fang's house. Wang Yuelong spoke to receive the guest he had brought. Shu Fan replied that it was one of the spiritual sheep that the sect was cultivating. He asked if the custodians would show up here. Wang Yuelong replied that he had paid 1 spirit stone for her. He asked if Shui Fan could make something decent out of it. He said Wang Yuelong could come in. A barrier showed up. Wang Yuelong said that it was a semi-automatic light technique. Every time they meet, Shu Fan makes Wang Yuelong feel worthless. He said that mastery of offensive, defensive, and some other techniques didn't beat Shu Fang's social standing at all. If only Wang Yuelong hadn't kept quiet, the guy would have become famous in the sect. He replied that he wanted to keep a low profile. He already knows what he could become. But for him, the priority is to continue to lead a bland existence and stay out of risky stories. Wang Yuelong replied that he remembers everything. The protagonist is modest and doesn't like too much attention. Shu Fan said to bring in the sheep. Wang Yuelong asked if they would roast it whole. The sheep got ready. He immediately smelled her scent. It was a top-level secret technique called roast lamb. Wang Yuelong said he was ready to kiss him, but the guy immediately interrupted him. He also brought something for Brother Shu. He said roast lamb without wine is spiritual stones to the wind. Shu Fan replied that since Wang Yuelong had an all-potent pouch, apparently one of the mentors liked it. Wang Yuelong said that this wine was 10 times the price of a sheep. The boy asked what was the matter. After all, he would hardly spend such sums on an unremarkable day. Wang Yuelong replied that there was nothing to hide from him. He had decided to join the martial division, and the mentor who had noticed him was from there. He wouldn't be able to come here often anytime soon, so he decided to have one last feast with him. He'll never forget how the boy saved his life. Combat missions can be very dangerous, and he might not have a bone left in his body, and he might be wiped out. In that case, they'll never see each other again. Shu Fang said that wine can't be translated like that, not even for dramatic effect. He knew that this little guy was quite cunning. There was a reason why he was being pompous. Wang Yuelong said that he was the one who had the chance to eat such delicious food to his heart's content, so his life was not lived in vain. He said he didn't need to be seen off. He'll find his way. Shu Fan threw something to him. He asked what it was. They were jade task boards. He thanked his brother. Shu Fan said that the one who survives wins. He said that he would remember this firmly. He has almost no friends here. He hopes he doesn't lose this little tomboy. With Wang Yuelong gone, the guy can now continue his reclusive life. He had long ago bribed an employee who handed out assignments to the sect's disciples. In the next few years, he won't be facing any traveling assignments. He will sell the spiritual rice he has grown and learn alchemy. Once he has mastered alchemy, he will sell pills and save up to learn forging. And with alchemy and forging skills, you can live a good life. He has no other plans. There was just one little snag. The universe in which he finds himself is vast. Even in the classical texts of the sect, it is said that there are at least several realms of celestials. Apparently, these realms are in the great heliocosm. So the world in which he is located belongs to the middle heliocosm. Here, ordinary people coexist with those who aspire to enter the realm of the celestials. There are thousands of such worlds. In the history of the Heavenly Throne sect, there had already been mentors who had entered the realm of the celestials. But he's definitely not going to get that anytime soon, all because of the half-dead system. If he dies before the day of the upper limit, he won't be reborn, so he has to live like a mouse. He used the bird-slaying spell. Now he had created another high-level spell. He wondered what good all his talents would do. If he was exposed, someone would surely kill him out of jealousy. If he crosses someone at the groundwork stage, let alone the higher stages, he can't even defend himself. He realized that he could take disciples. He couldn't develop himself, but he could develop others. He could give them spells of his own design. It is the sacred duty of every student to protect his teacher. If he has strong disciples, He doesn't have to worry about his safety. Once he reaches the 12th stage of key hardening, he will immediately accept a disciple. A host scan was attempted, but the attempt was successfully blocked. Someone's messing with him again. One of the few pluses of the system is that when an outsider tries to find out something about him, it projects a false image, so no one notices anything different about him. He wonders if the Heavenly Throne sect has so many enemies that they even need to scan the entire sect territory once a week. But that's okay, because the system can take care of that. He'd better invent something. Beast Soul Storage allows you to collect the substance of the beast soul. Soul Storage keeps the soul active outside the body. The earth element-based shell creates a new vessel for the soul. He wondered if he could synthesize the beast summoning spell. He can keep the withdrawn soul active for some time, but for long storage he needs a vessel. But he doesn't know where to get a suitable vessel because he won't waste it again. He caught a sparrow to contribute to science. He made a ceramic sparrow. The result looks good. He wonders if such a trick would work on a werewolf, but the ceramic sparrow broke. When alchemy starts to bring money, he will try to buy a normal vessel. Nothing can be done in this world without spiritual stones, but one can search for new thoughts in the repository of Buddhist canons. Meanwhile, in the forest outside the sect's territory, Wang Yuelong only needed one technique. He laughed. His brother Jue had fitted an incredible level spell. He hopes no beast has eaten the newcomer, for all responsibility will fall on him. But then he saw the slain beast. He was shocked that he had killed the beast with a single move. He thought that maybe the combat squad had gained another A-ranked fighter. A combat unit divides fighters into 4 ranks: A, B, C, D. D-rank fighters are useless, and C-rank fighters are treated as cannon fodder. B-rank fighters are nurtured as the main force. Rank A fighters are the future elite. Mentors are personally involved in their development. They are given the best of everything. Wang Yuelong asked what was wrong with his face. He replied that he was just a little shocked. It was surprising that he was able to deal with a stage 6 beast so easily. Those are the qualities of rank B and above. But he would have to try harder if he wanted to reach rank A. In order to do so, he needs to kill 10 beasts at the 7th key tempering stage. Wang Yuelong replied that he understood. The man hoped that Wang Yuelong would not forget him when he became a rank A fighter. Wang Yuelong thanked him for the recommendation. He replied that it was not difficult for him. Now they need to report on the completion of the mission. Xu Fan asked what was strange about killing a stage 6 beast with a single strike. He gave Wang Yuelong the Fire Peak spell. Before the throw itself, it slowed down his heartbeat, and it helped him hit the target accurately. It would be strange if Wang Yuelong didn't kill him in one hit. He called his brother a genius and suggested that he join the combat squad. Given his skills, he would be an A-rank fighter and a favorite of his mentors. He replied that he did not like to kill, and the risk of dying would increase. The position of fighters in society is lower than that of masters of alchemy and forging. If he reaches the peak of the Qi tempering stage, he won't be able to break through until the designated time. He may be considered a hopeful person, but at some point, he will be scorned for standing in one place for so long. He doesn't want to get into that. Wang Yuelong asked, wasn't the ability to instill terror in others a dream for any man? With his talents, he will be able to ascend to the realm of the Celestials and become the 39 honorable ancestor of the Heavenly Throne sect. And Wang Yuelong, as his faithful disciple, would ascend with him. After all, it was known that if an almighty cultivator could endure the heavenly trials, he was allowed to take 2 disciples whose cultivation had reached the spirit nascent stage and above with him. He asked why Wang Yuelong was so eager to go to the celestial realm. Life there is even lousier than here. It's a very cruel world, a real hell for cultivators. He replied that it was the ultimate dream of any cultivator to get there. Xu Fan said that it was only his dream. It was unlikely that he would be able to live like a lazy seal in the celestial realm. He cut the meat with his technique. The guy said for his friend to eat more beast meat on the 6th step, because it was very beneficial. He asked if his brother could take him on as a disciple. Xu Fan asked if his head was all right. Did the beast fat clog his brain? He had just told me that he wanted to become a rank A fighter so that more mentors would train him personally. Wang Yuelong said that he is from a lineage of small-grade cultivators. The strongest member of his family is at the golden elixir stage. But among his ancestors, there was one warrior at the spirit birth stage. He asked what this was about. Wang Yuelong said that his mouth had now fallen into disrepair, but thanks to the travel notes left behind by that ancestor, his family members traditionally had a broad outlook. Their world belonged to the middle heliocosm, and the realm of celestials belonged to the great Heliocosm. And he was right that the realm of the celestials was indeed a cruel place. Their sect territory is located in one of the poorest regions of the world, Feiyu, and the central continent is considered the promised land for every cultivator. There are hundreds of disciples there at the spirit birth stage, and above. The strongest sect is the Heaven Arrow sect. The guy didn't expect him to know so much about the world. He started from afar and was getting somewhere. The cultivators of the central continent had learned all the techniques and spells, and were now combining old ones and creating new ones. These people are called spellcasters, and their status in society is far above both alchemists and forging masters. Wang Yulong's ancestor had personally visited the Heaven Arrow sect. Their disciples at the Qi tempering stage are capable of defeating beasts at the foundation stage. His brother has all the credentials to be such a spellcaster. He doesn't think that someone from their sect is capable of creating attack spells that can hit a beast 2 steps higher. That's why he wants to become his disciple. He begged to be taken on as an apprentice. Sugifan ripped him off with a technique. He won't take him on as an apprentice. He's over 18 and it's too late to ask. But he already had a thought in his mind that Shu Fang had the talent to become a spellcaster. Wang Yuelong wondered if he really wanted to kill him as an unnecessary witness. He said he promised to keep it a secret, that he had the potential to become a spellcaster. He asked me not to kill him. Xu Fan replied that he wouldn't kill him. He didn't need the hype of killing a sect disciple that would draw attention to him. He used memory editing. Wang Yuelong asked where she stood. The guy said about how he wanted to become a rank A fighter and asked him to teach him a couple of his techniques. He remembered this and asked if he would really help him. The guy said yes because they were friends. Now he must write down everything he's been told. This world is more complicated than he realized. His sect isn't even close to being one of the strongest. Today was also the first time he heard of spellcasters, but it's not yet clear how far the central continent is from his current location, nor what dangers await him. But he wonders if he needs it all. He decided he wouldn't practice tonight. He'll have the night off. If he had a computer here with internet access, Wailing Sage life wouldn't be so depressing. He was already tired of clearing his mind and taming his desires. But something happened. The ship was flying right over his house. It was a 500-meter-long ship with several hundred sentries at the golden elixir stage beside it, monitoring the surrounding airspace on top of Firebirds. Also, the main ship is protected by smaller vessels, 300 meters. It's most likely an expedition sent out to find valuable resources. The guy wanted to too, but he needs to learn forging, and then he would build his own ship. There was a knock at his door. He thinks it's Wang Yuelong again. He asked what he was doing here, since he was supposed to be on a mission. Xufan noticed that his leg wasn't doing well. Wang Yuelong replied that he was injured in the course of the mission, and took a few days off to recover, so he wanted to spend the weekend in the company of a friend. Xufan said that he was giving a body lightning spell, which meant that even a beast at the 7th step wouldn't be able to get him. So Wang Yuelong decided to go all out. He replied that the beast had a strong defense. Only with the help of its spells could it be broken through. So he decided to go head-on with it. Xufan said that his martial skills are unabashedly lousy. He began to tell him off. Wang Yuelong could step back and take a stance, then use a long-range spell. This was not the first time he had explained this tactic to him. He had also forgotten the defense techniques at close range from the enemy. He said that he wanted to finish him off so badly that he only thought of attacking him. Shui Fan replied that he would learn from his own mistakes. Apparently, that was his way. Wang Yuelong said, coming to him as a senior comrade. He asked what to do with a beast that had strong defense and fast speed. Xufan replied that he was going to the battle station, but he came to ask advice from a homebody who doesn't go to the forest. He called him a fool. He's thinking about how he can get martial arts into someone's head. Someone who's good at it can grasp it right away. But Wang Yuelong probably doesn't. Wang Yuelong thinks that his brother in front of him might not be pretending. He won't be taught what he can do by any mentor from the martial arts department. After all, next time, he might even die. He told him that he knows that for some reason, he carefully hides his talents from the surrounding. But Wang Yuelong knows what Xufan is capable of. Xufan will tell him how to deal with such beasts. In exchange, Wang Yuelong should tell him about the flying ships that had recently passed by. Wang Yuelong replied that he already knew a lot about them. Xufan carried them to another space. Wang Yuelong said that this illusion was simply excellent. He asked if he was using the charm technique. The guy knows that it would take the spiritual energy of all the sect disciples at the Qi tempering stage to create such an illusion. He replied that he did. Shui Fan wants to give him a training battle. His spiritual energy won't be enough to maintain the illusion for long, so they start right now. Now he would face a fast beast with good defense, just what he needs. A stone mantis that was at the 7th stage of chi tempering appeared. Wang Yulong has 15 minutes to kill him. After that, he will analyze his shortcomings. Wang Yulong resented that at least he said that they had started. He used the lightness of pen technique and the fire peaks technique. His attack was aimed at the mantis, but it dodged. That really surprised the guy. Shu Fan said that he moves fast enough, but he releases the spades slowly. Beyond Shu Fang's words, this was the kindergarten level. Mantis threw a strike at him. Shu Fan asked what he was distracted by during the battle. After a few of these bouts, he was in the wounds. Shu Fan said that he lost this bout practically at 0. This is because he lacks the ability to observe his opponent, notice his habits, and predict his movements. Every creature has its habits, whether human or monster. During combat, he needs to remember the following. To defeat a fast, swift beast, you must use a spell that seals its movement. He could only do that if he understood where the monster would be at the next moment. If he was a little attentive, he would know where to hit, and then that mantis wouldn't dodge the fire spikes. After he missed, his movements became nervous and frantic. Already this moment he had lost. The beast managed to dodge 4 of his attacks, but during this time, Wang Yulong never figured out how it moved. Wang Yulong thinks that his illusion skill is so excellent that he still feels the pain from the blows. He wonders how he managed to hold the illusion and watch the fight at the same time. Wang Yulong said that those were not all of his shortcomings. He asked what else he had noticed. Shu Fan replied that they wouldn't go anywhere if he mentioned them. He told him to focus on internalizing what he had already noted. If Shu Fang has time in the future, he will teach Wang Yulong some more things. In fact, he had wanted to say this sentence for a long time, for it gives him an important look. Wang Yulong was thankful for the guidance he had received from Shu Fang. Shu Fan sat down and said that now it was Wang Yulong's turn to tell everything he knew about those flying ships. Shu Fan asked what about the flying ships. His friend will tell you all about it now. In fact, the story of that ship is pretty funny. 500 years ago, the Supreme Mentor gathered all of the sect's possessions and traveled to the central continent to order the construction of a ship. For this reason, their sect did not accept new disciples for 50 years because they could hardly feed themselves. At the sight of the spiritual stones, the sect members fell into madness, and when the built ship arrived, the sect's life began to get better. From then on, they were considered a serious force. Shu Fan asked why they had to suffer so much for the sake of the ship. Maybe they were preparing for war, or searching for resources. Wang Yulong replied that it was for the sake of resources. Half of the world's area is covered by water, which is called the Great Sea. The amount of resources is as vast as the sea itself. Its depths hide valuable treasures that are not found on land. But the sea is very dangerous. It cannot be explored with only sturdy warriors. And to be able to search for resources, you need a flying ship. From the depths of the Great Sea, giant monsters sometimes rise. And only with a ship can one fight them off. And if one were to rely only on the resources available on land, the development of the disciples would end at the stage of the golden elixir. It is also said that with a flying ship, you can go beyond the skyline. Shu Fan wondered if he was talking about space. Wang Yulong said that only the top-level sects were capable of this, and the people of their sect were content with traveling the Great Sea. The boy thought that owning this ship was like owning a nuclear weapon. It defines the sect's position in the world and is a symbol of its power. He asked if there was an option to get aboard the ship and inspect it. Only 4 types of people are allowed on board. They are experts in research spells because they determine the route of the ship. They are also guards from the combat section with men of rank A, masters of alchemy and forging, because they are responsible for the primary processing of extracted raw materials, and a commander of a ship in the mastery phase of the void who is good at spells, alchemy, forging, and knows how to fight. In order for Shu Fan to get into the ship, he would need to join the battle squad, become an A-rank fighter, and reach the gold elixir stage. Getting in through the other ranks will be more difficult. Shu Fan thinks that he needs to live for hundreds of years and not die along the way. And it takes a lot of money to become a master forger or alchemist of 3rd class or higher. Wang Yulong asked if he would go into a combat unit with him. The boy replied that he wasn't interested in killing. He would like to learn how to build such a ship. He would learn alchemy, earn spirit stones, and start learning forging. Wang Yulong said that his financial situation wouldn't allow it. Even if Shu Fan sold the spiritual rice he had grown, he still wouldn't have enough for one introductory course. Shu Fan said that he would start by stopping feeding Wang Yulong for free. He thinks that if he had studied so much in his past life, his parents would have died of happiness. He's bound to find a way to get back to them. The guy introduced himself and said he wanted to sign up for pill-making techniques. The man replied that the cost for 1 year of training, and there are only 2, is 500 spirit stones and 100 merit points. 2 days off per month, in the middle and at the end. After becoming a beginner alchemist, he can join the alchemy department. Shufan thinks it's just a shameless robbery. He was let into the alchemy training room. Shuvong liked the view. The man thinks he's out of his village for the first time. He wonders why these beggars are getting into alchemy. He informed him of everything and wished him with veneration to become a master of alchemy. Shufan thanked him for his wish. He marveled at how many people were here. He smelled a sweet aroma. The woman asked if this was his first occupation. He had heard legends about her before. Shufan introduced himself and asked how to address her. Her name is Shayan. Her father can't come to class, so she usually teaches in his place. He replied that he understood. The woman asked what his problem was. Shufan replied that he didn't know how he could catch up with the others since they hadn't been practicing for the first day. She said that the other students had only had time to learn some of the basics. She had a jade tablet with the material she had learned. After lunch, she would go over to his place to study one-on-one. It's time for her to start her lesson, and he needs to listen to her, especially carefully. It was a fast-paced plot development. He had already seen a movie that started the same way. This was the night in his mind. There she asked if he was ready to study, and she named him Brother Sue. After fantasizing like that, his nose bled. Today, they will be going through the methods of initial processing of spirit plants, a very important area of knowledge in alchemy. How well they learn it will determine the quality of the pills. He thought he had embarked on the path of learning alchemy, and with a teacher like that, learning would not be boring. It wasn't until a month later that he was ready to begin his first tryouts. He used the techniques of fire control and energy control. He wonders what's going on, and also that it was easy. But it wasn't as simple as he thought it would be. Even geniuses like him have boilers exploding. That boiler cost a lot of money. He begged the boiler not to explode anymore. He examined the cauldron. The first cracks appeared on the boiler. To make the first pill, you need 20 cauldrons. To develop your own pill, 50. To become an alchemist, 100. To become a mentor, 1,000. It is not for nothing that poor people are not allowed to enter alchemy, but such rules don't apply to geniuses like him. But this was the 3rd time his cauldron had exploded. After 3 blasts, he finally made it. If the next batch was successful, after deducting the costs, it would bring him 17.5 spirit stones, which was almost 600% profit. It's more profitable than doing sect missions. The section went, then he needs to keep working. The next day, the study halls of alchemy, this time it was Shajing Tian, who was at the peak of the foundation stage. He asked who had succeeded in creating a nutritious pill. Everyone was silent. The man realized that they had blown up more than 1 cauldron, but the pills had not been cooked. But that's all right. All in good time. One student asked how the teacher knew. The second said that he had blown up 2 whole pots, and the third replied that he had almost killed himself yesterday too. The guy wonders why he's staring at him like that. Did he realize he had succeeded in making a whole batch? A man asked his daughter if she knew a disciple named Shufan well. She replied that he was a very ordinary-looking student. He keeps a low profile and does not stand out in any way. The man took a moment to point out that he didn't show his face easily. He told her to pay attention to him more often. As he entered the classroom, he felt the slight whiff of a ready-made nutritional pill of high quality emanating from him. She asked what for. The man replied that he might have great potential. If his suspicions were confirmed, he would take him for personal training. The guy was right on the edge of his seat. With any luck, the bowler should be able to withstand 6 more explosions. He'd have to try not to ruin it until he earned the money for a new one. He wonders if he has a new neighbor. The neighboring mountain had indeed been inhabited by someone. Shufan moved to such a remote area because he didn't want to attract attention. He wondered why anyone would want to move here anymore. He saw something fly. It was Wei Yun. He asked what she was doing here. The girl said that she decided to check on her husband. She'd already reached the 4th stage of chi tempering. The girl began to show off. He doesn't realize if she's showing off her cultivation or showing off her skirt. The girl said that a mentor had found in her a rare spirituality. He wanted to take her as his disciple, but she refused. The boy praised her. Also, her father asked to be reminded to take the time to bring the ransom for her. The guy replied that it was so nice of him. He said he'd make her something since it was getting close to noon. She probably hadn't had lunch yet. The girl said her husband spoils her like that. The guy tried to say it was all just a joke, The girl's like a sister to him. Choosing a groom is the most important decision in any girl's life. He doesn't think he's quite right for the role. The girl started crying and said her husband didn't need her anymore. An hour later, he was still trying to calm her down. 2 hours later, she was still saying her husband was abandoning her. 3 hours later, there was already a deluge. She asked if he was still her husband. She started again for not needing her husband anymore. He was telling her to stop crying. He was screaming that he'd pay a goddamn ransom for her. She immediately calmed down and said she was catching his drift. He's not a bad cook, although the food is a little cold. He asked who taught her that. She asked what he meant. She was definitely playing dumb. He was just tricked. The girl said she sincerely wanted them to be husband and wife. She looked so cute at that moment. He calmed down. He decided to let it be for now. She wanted to feed him, but he wouldn't budge. He noticed something. It was a beautiful woman. He wonders if this hottie has arrived at his place. Maybe the system decided to take pity on them and give them a gift. A pretty girl like that wouldn't be out of place in any manga. He greeted her and asked what he could do for her. She replied that she had come to take someone with her. He asked if that someone was in the Heavenly Throne Sex territory. The girl asked who he was talking to. She said yes. He thinks he's really lucky. She asked the girl if she wanted to be her ward. Someone asked the woman if she was here to pick up their man. The man said that she was the bearer of the heavenly spirit, but she was not worth her attention. The woman replied that their fates were linked. She would take her anyway. He could consider her his debt to her. She asked if the girl wanted to become her personal disciple. She has training methods to develop celestial spirit bearers. She will take her all the way to the realm of celestials. The girl asked, she is the one asking her. She replies that she doesn't even know somehow. The guy thinks it's such a cool opportunity. What the hell is she thinking? She asked him what she should do. Everyone looked at him. They used divine consciousness to test it. It's a serious technique. The hottie gives off such a pleasant odor. It's like she's trying to seduce him. The other one makes him sick. He sighed. Afterwards, he said it was a great chance, and he didn't think the girl should turn it down. It was a good chance for him to get rid of his little wife. The girl asked if she could visit her husband. The woman replied that she could. Her methods do not suggest taking a celibacy lunch, and she is not in the habit of prying into her students' private lives. Especially if the heavenly spirit bearer chose him, then he is also special. The girl decides to do as her husband tells her. She agreed to become her apprentice. The man congratulated them. The woman said that since the little girl agreed, she would take her right away. The guy replied that he didn't have a wife anymore, and he was just getting used to it. There are many pumped-up masters in this world. He constantly sees visitors stronger than him. He might be stuck at the chi tempering stage, but that's no reason for him to lie around. You can pump up the 5 elements technique. This book is trending right now, and he didn't buy it for nothing. Someone had entered his territory. It was Wang Wan Yuelong. Shufan asked if he had spent this entire month in the primeval forest. He said that he had gone hunting in a very distant forest, where he only killed beasts of a level higher than himself. The sect had 2 more specific beasts to kill, but this task was too difficult for him, so he came back for some rest. It could be said that he was on life and death guard every day. Shufan asked why he had come to see him. He wanted to ask how to finish off the remaining 2 beasts. Shui Fan asked if he had met them before. Wang Yuelong replied that he had. He had even managed to get into a fight. If not for Shu Fan's knowledge, he would have stayed in that forest. The guy said to describe those animals. The first was the Earthman. He has a very unusual defense technique. As soon as he senses danger to his life, he immediately goes underground. If you don't kill him within a couple of moments, he won't give you another chance. The second was a blood cat. She was very fast. He had never been able to pick up on her movement habits. With just 1 claw catching him, she inflicted near-fatal wounds on him. If he didn't keep his defense techniques at the ready, things would have been very bad. He asked how his brother would have dealt with them. Shu Fan thinks that since he hasn't come his trial, he's not ready yet. Especially since he has not yet had time to heal his mental wounds after losing his wife, he is already asking for a lesson. Shu Fan replied that he had 1 secret technique that could kill any beast with a single strike. It was quite simple, as it only consisted of a single move. Wang Yuelong was in anticipation. The guy said the technique was invented by some great bald master, and he only got it by luck. He'll show him how it works. Now, he would create 2 mantises, with the qualities he described. One of them can burrow into the ground and has good health. The other is highly maneuverable and has a good attack. Right now, he would see Shui Fan killing them with a secret technique. He punched the golem. Fan said that one precise strike and no defense would save him. Wang Yuelong was surprised that he had killed him with just one strike. But then there was a second mantis behind him. Fan has dealt with him too, he only needs a few moments to finish them off. Wang Yuelong begged him to pass this technique on to him. Fan said that it took a long time to learn it. One must go through many fights to use it with ease. Wang Yuelong asked if there was a way to learn it quickly. Fan replied that there was indeed such a way. Wang Yuelong said not to mock him and say already, "You have to shave your head." That master claimed that the day after he shaved his head, he began to apply it many times more successfully. Wang Yuelong asked if there were other ways. Fan has dug a hole and suggests that he jump into it. But his secret technique is worth it. It helps him pinpoint the enemy's weak point. Such skills shouldn't be given for free. Wang Yuelong shouted that he agreed. Fan only laughed. He replied that a word is not a sparrow. Wang Yuelong had just taken another step towards becoming stronger. Wang Yuelong asked why he was so strong yet not bold. Fan replied that he was not seeking to become even stronger. He said to go back and refine this technique. Soon, he wouldn't be afraid of any beast at the Qi tempering stage. Wang Yuelong walked away confident of success. He didn't think his friend would buy it so easily. But now it was time for him to get on with his plans. Thanks to alchemy, he would soon have enough money saved up to learn forging. 3 months later, somewhere far away in some sacred place, the girl shouted forward. The woman said it's only been 3 months and she's already drawn to fly out of here. She hasn't even fully mastered the techniques of the Heaven's Mandate yet. Her combat skills still leave much to be desired. She can't let her go. At one time, the woman was also here as a celestial spirit bearer. Think of herself in her years, she should be pleased with her progress. If only it weren't for that nightmare she'd had. She will never forget the horror of that picture. It is the heavenly spirit's warning of an impending threat. It asks so much of the girl, for only she can stop this catastrophe. The girl said it's all so hard. If she took a little walk, her strength for training would come back to her. And if she was allowed to see her husband, that would be wonderful. The heavenly spirit wouldn't let her choose a mediocre man, and since she was so attached to him, there was a great future ahead for him as well. The woman replied that she could go for a walk, but she could not go to her husband. When she had mastered the techniques of the celestial mandate at an intermediate level, then they would talk. The girl said she would try very hard. Forging classrooms. Fan was closing in on something sparkling. It was a bald head. The guy said he was told about this trick by Brother Wang from the combat unit. The result is instantaneous. After he shaved his head, any beast at the Qi tempering stage he kills with a single blow. He told his friend to try it too. He had seen it in the alchemy halls, but now the fashion had reached the forging hall as well. His friend had managed to get almost all the outside students hooked on it. His prank was out of control. After a while, most of the disciples of the Heavenly Throne sect shaved their heads. This phenomenon went down in history under the name Bald Madness. He was reading the basics of forging, a self-teaching book for beginners. As it turns out, the entry threshold for forging is even higher than for alchemy. He'd spent 10,000, and he had to learn everything himself. He had the same book and study materials in his hands. He spotted Pang Fu's brother. Shui Fan asked what he was doing here. It was an outside student who comes from a very, very wealthy family. He had heard rumors of his success in alchemy, so he decided to congratulate him. The boy replied that verbal congratulations would suffice, and that it was not necessary to give him spirit stones. But he told him to take it. As external disciples, they are like lonely wanderers. There is no one to take care of them, so there is no need to refuse the rare gifts of fate. Before the Qi tempering stage, they had studied together. Now he was reminded that there were very few people he could call buddies here, and he is one of them. Only he doesn't know why he's so generous. Fan told him to lay it all out. Pang Fu replied that if he insisted, he would go straight to the point. Outside disciples have nothing to rely on in the cult, no one cares about them. All they can do is get pennies for doing the cult's tasks. It is very difficult to build a career alone, so he wants the outer disciples to start uniting. They can share resources and information, and solve complex problems together. He thinks it would make their lives a lot easier if they could join together. The guy replied that Pang Fu doesn't have such a difficult life. After all, he comes from a rich merchant family. They're tougher than any of the great warrior families. He asked how he knew about it. In fact, when he first came to this world, he had received a handout from him. The guy replied that he had seen the entourage he came here with when he joined the cult. He asked if he wanted to form some kind of alliance. He replied that he did. The main thing is, that he wants to gather 1,000+ outer disciples at one stage who can help each other. The guy remarked that he was doing quite well since he even had spiritual tea. Zhu Fan replied that his scheme was curious. He asked what it would give him and what he himself could give Pang Fu in return. You can get first-hand news of the sect. Among the outside students, there are many who would like to try their hand at alchemy, but they have no money to study, so they serve the alchemy masters for years. His success in alchemy is already known. He can help self-taught students or those who are behind in their studies. Right now, the Alliance has 40 apprentice candidates to join the martial branch. There are 2 promising alchemists and 1 apprentice forging master. And if a nugget like him joined them, their alliance would be guaranteed to prosper. The boy agreed. Pang Fu replied that this was the answer he had hoped for. He gave him something. The guy asked what it was. He replied that it was a means of communication. They were made by the apprentice of a master forger. With this balloon, he will receive the latest news of the Alliance. Also, quests are sometimes posted here. He also gave him jade slabs. They said goodbye and he left. Sha Yan asked if he had baited the guests. The guy immediately backed away and replied that an old friend had stopped by. She asked why he was so nervous. This girl is exactly the person he'd least like to meet. She asked him if he'd even invite her into the house. He'd only seen such beauties on the internet before, in pictures with lots of filters, and now he had to avoid her. He invited her in after all and poured tea. Ever since her father told her to pay attention to him more often, she's been feeling something more and more often. He caresses her gaze harder. She must not get distracted and forget the purpose of her visit. She asked why he wanted to be part of the alchemy department. She decided to ask differently. Why he wanted to be her father's apprentice. Her father was already convinced of the talent and decided to take him on as his personal apprentice. He thinks he was never interested in alchemy. He only studied it so he could make pills to sell and earn money to learn forging. He knows that masters of alchemy and forging look down on each other. He replied that he was just a freedom-loving person and didn't want to commit himself to anyone. Alchemy is just an additional source of income for him. She had noticed that his successes suggested that he had a gift for alchemy. Unless he is guided by an experienced mentor, he will simply bury his talent. The world of alchemy is a vast sea. It can't be fathomed alone. It is also a way to ascend to heaven. It looked like he'd have to tell her at least some of the truth, or he'd never get away from her. He asked if she had ever been on their sect's flying ship. She replied that she had once traveled aboard it. He said that as soon as he saw it, he swore to himself that one day he would definitely build one just like it. Alchemy was just one step in a bigger plan. He doesn't want to become her father's apprentice because he doesn't want an amazing master like her father wasting his time on him. She recalled that moment when her brother had said that one day he would definitely become the best forging master in the Heavenly Throne sect. She replied that since he didn't want to be an alchemist, let him do his best to become a good blacksmith. After that, she left. He said freedom is priceless. He needs to live 150 years of the Qi tempering stage. In order to endure it, he needs to find an occupation that will bring him joy. Char sent a notification that he has 6 unread news items. The sect will soon open secret portals. Beauty began to cultivate with a representative of the martial branch. The Ghost Soul sect's mentor arrived with several disciples. The alchemy branch accepted more disciples this year. Their strongest disciple accepted the challenge of the Ghost Spirit sect. The flying ship will return a few days early. The guy wondered if the beautiful Changqian might have been dating Wang Yuelong. He heard a knock at his door. The girl asked if Brother Shu was as cool as he said he was. He said yes. Without him, he would not have achieved all that he has now. When she met him, let her be nicer to him. He could solve her problem at the snap of his fingers. It was Mujin Xianqiang. She was the first beauty among the outer disciples and Wang Yuelong's paired cultivation partner. She asked if Brother Shu was here. The guy thinks his Sha Yan will be prettier, because this student is too young. She is not yet ripe with the charms of feminine beauty. Wang Yuelong asked about his progress in learning forging. The girl greeted. The guy asked if she was the one doing paired cultivation with Wang Yuelong. Wang Yuelong replied that nothing could be kept from him. Shufan said that he had managed to fall in love with the first beauty of the sect, so this news was going around the entire sect. He congratulated them. Wang Yuelong said that he practically brought her to introduce her to him first. Shufan replied that they would talk inside. Zuefan asked who taught him that. In the past, in exchange for spell techniques, he used to bring a beast carcass that he had to cook. The problem was that they had recently gone on a mission and encountered a soul eater at the 9th stage of Qi tempering. They ran very fast, but she was infected by his breath. Ever since then, she has been sleeping very badly. Some unholy force tells her to go to the Soul Eater. He used aura cleansing. An evil spirit appeared. Shufan called him a disgrace, because he was at the 5th stage of tempering, but he was running away from some Soul Eater. He also let his girlfriend get infected. Wang Yulong said that the Soul Eater was a 9th level Soul Eater. Shufan said that he would have killed him. The girl thanked him. She asked if he possessed the high-ranked purification technique, because it was the only one that could deal with soul contamination so quickly. Shufan replied that he started training her from idleness, eventually developing her to the highest stage. The girl said her boyfriend was right. He is just incredibly strong. She asked if he would go to open the secret portal. Wang Yuelong said that given Brother Chu's combat strength, they wouldn't leave empty-handed. Shufan realized that they were afraid that it would be too dangerous there. So they're looking for a bodyguard Wang Yuelong used to trick by himself, but now he is using his girlfriend as well. He said it's better to stay at home. Wang Yuelong said that the legacy of great masters can be found there. During the last time the portals were opened, someone found in the notes of a great master forger, which described many lost runes. If he wants to become an outstanding forging master, knowing a lot of runes is necessary. Wang Yuelong replied that he had already figured it out. There would be beasts at most at the peak of the Qi tempering stage. The safety of his life would be guaranteed. The girl complimented that similarly. There would also be legacy masters only at the QI tempering stage. Just everything for him. Shufan was hooked and asked if he was sure that only beasts at the tempering stage would be there. Wang Yulong replied that he was sure. The guy asked how to get involved. Wang Yulong said that the cost of the move is only 1,000 spirit stones. It will open in 10 days. Meet at Tianyi Mountain. While he still had time, he should delve deeper into forging. He might even be able to forge something that will increase his chances of survival on the other side of the portal. He was reading an introductory course in forging. Forging is the art of curing essences from all things and forming new things. Forging requires raw materials, runes, and shaping. In the Qi tempering stage, the available spiritual fire is not enough to temper the materials. It requires finding a place with abundant spiritual fire and quenching the ore. This is the most basic method of quenching raw materials. Even if the materials have been initially processed, once received, they need to be hardened again with a hammer. After the hammer quenching, it remains to be shaped. Before the forged object cools and takes its final shape, you need to fuse the runes into it. To create the most basic items, you should use at least 3 runes, without using the same rune. The more runes used, the better the end result will be. You should also remember that the life of a master forger is an endless search for new runes. After that, a list of the 1,000 most common types of spiritual ore and their characteristics penetrated his memory. He's internalized it. It's more interesting than alchemy. His communication device began to vibrate. It was Pan Fu who said that he admired him, for not only was he studying alchemy, but now he was also studying forging. Shufan said that he had learned something interesting about dual cultivation of alchemy and forging, so he was going to share it with him. It's the Catcher and the Beast. Blacksmith Halls. Shufan said that he wanted to rent a room. He could finally try his hand at real forging. It was a natural source of spiritual fire. And it's 60 degrees in here, so he'll put on ice protection, and he'll try this first. He got scarlet steel and iron ore concentrate. Pang Fu said that he had learned something about pumping alchemy and forging skills at the same time. When you reach a high level in one of the crafts, a guiding light comes down to help you climb to the top. Well, if he decides to take the path of dual cultivation, combining forging and alchemy, it is seen by the heavens as rejecting their help, and he will only be able to break through by relying on his cultivation. Apparently, a man of single well succeeding in 2 crafts at once is even seen as a threat by the heavens. But this is even to his advantage. His system encourages him to control his breakthroughs on his own, without heaven's interference. Now he would work the ore with spiritual hammers, and then add molten steel to it and form a sword. He didn't expect this process to be so spiritually costly. If he didn't have a huge spiritual resource, he couldn't even forge a sword. I think he's at the finish line. It's time to smelt the runes. The hardness of a rock, the lightness of a feather. But he didn't have time, because there was an explosion. He thinks he screwed up. The raw materials for 400 spirit stones went down the drain. An elderly man came in and asked what was going on here. He was the manager of the blacksmith shop and halls. He asked if this was the guy's first time. Shufan replied that since he was the manager, he should know something about forging. Now, until he succeeded, he wouldn't let him go anywhere. The old man yelled at him to be careful. 3 days later, Tanmi Mountain, near the secret portal. They flew on a bird, but something flew by them. It was Fang. He thinks the two of them are torturing the poor crane, although he admits it's a bit romantic. They've landed, Wang Yulong asked. He flew here on a sword that he forged himself. He had just started learning everything, but he was already making so much progress. Fan flew faster than anyone in the groundwork stage. Yufan replied as if he was the first day he had met him. He could already be called a master forger. A man appeared, saying that the secret portal was about to open. It is suitable for disciples at the QI tempering stage. Once they enter, they are not allowed to kill anyone. After a month, they will be thrown out of there. Entry is available after paying a registration fee of 1,000 spirit stones. He told them to prepare to open the portal. Wang Yuelong asked if he would be with them. The boy replied that he would not, but he gave it to him. In case of an emergency, you have to let your spiritual energy into him. This will create a high-frequency vibration, and he will feel it. He thanked him. But Xuefan had already flown away. He was as fast as lightning. There was such pure spiritual energy here that it took your breath away, and a whole forest of raw materials grown in such a noble environment. A month will fly by, but you can't do without a stronghold. He started building a house. It wasn't a sword, just a fairy tale. Meanwhile, there were beasts behind him. He noticed them. They realized they had the wrong guy. They were beasts at the 4th stage of chi tempering. As assistants, they would definitely come in handy. He told them to bring anything of value or usefulness. His home was almost complete, and now it was time for him to search for the runes left here by the forging masters. He thinks there's something useful to be found in the lake. But it's not that simple. Someone was telling him not to panic. He had just subdued a flying sword, but he was already fine. Someone from his sect got here before him. He congratulated that person on such a serious haul. It was Ye Xiaoyao, who possessed a soft and casual voice. He asked how he should address Fang. The guy thinks he looks more like the protagonist than he does. He introduced himself as an outer disciple, Fan. He was prettier than Fang. He was probably favored by the heavens, as the portal had just opened and he already had a large booty. It looked like a very valuable flying sword, possibly a divine weapon that had been sealed. He said he was glad to meet you. The guy wonders what he wants from him. Ye Xiaoyao said that he wanted to share it with him. He asked to let him give this pearl as a gift in honor of their acquaintance. He hopes the guy won't refuse. The meaning of the gift is clear to him. He takes the pearl and obliges him to keep his mouth shut, telling no one about the rest of his loot. However, he wonders who directed the spotlight and why the light is not on him. Who was the protagonist here in the first place? It was hard to believe. He asked what functions in trigonometry are called even points, whether he had heard all rivers flow east, whether he had watched the Battle of Chosen Reservoir, and whether he had taught moonlight beats into the window. Ye Xiaoyao asked if he was trying to say that he didn't like his gift. Fan replied that he understood what was required of him. He thanked him for the gift. And now he found out that he wasn't a gotcha like him. Xiaoyao replied that he was glad he accepted the gift. The guy thinks he should stay as far away from this character as possible. The main characters are not only lucky all the time, but they often get into very dangerous situations. He said that perhaps their paths would cross again. He flew away. It was clear that the guy definitely didn't want to meet him again. They lose a couple of secondary character buddies along the way, and he doesn't want that. He wonders if that guy left anything behind. It was night. Fan thinks that guy is definitely the main character. He scooped up everything from the bottom of the lake, even gouging out the turtle's eyes, even though they cost a penny. But he still likes it here. There's a lot more valuable stuff here. Someone knocked on his door. He saw a bunch of green eyes that glowed in the darkness. Fan shouted that they were ghosts, but these were the very beasts he had sent to find something of value. He opened the bag, and there was a bunch of useful stuff in there. He praised them, for they had done a good job. Unicorn grass, rootless flowers, red copper, tree fruits, and even spiritual stones. He thinks that maybe there is a mine of spirit stones nearby. But then the guy realized that they had gathered it all from the corpses. The portal had just opened, but some of them had already died. It was another reminder that he couldn't neglect safety measures. He would go to bed early tonight so that he could work hard tomorrow. And then he used the concealment mode. But now he thinks maybe he shouldn't have gotten up before the sun. He noticed that, besides him, someone else was walking around this early. He recognizes that barely perceptible sound made by the sword flying. It was him again. He wonders if that guy is trying to bewitch him, and the fact that he's definitely the protagonist. Ye Xiaoyao looked at what Shu Fan had prepared. He invited him to his humble meal. The guy finally ate. Shu Fan asked if he was a rank A fighter from the combat branch. Ye Xiaoyao replied that he was a candidate to join the swordsman, a disciple of mentor Yuan Hui. As he heard, his mentor comes from a great swordsman family and is a great master of his craft. The guy is definitely in for a great future. Of course, the protagonist must have an exceptional mentor. Without this cliché, he has great natural stats, and coming back with a huge haul, his growth will be even more rapid. Ye Xiaoyao said that he was used to such ridicule. A few months ago, he was an inner disciple at the foundation stage, but then his cultivation started to degrade. Right now, he had already slipped to the 9th QI tempering stage, and he didn't know when his decline would end. He was now trying to accumulate as much wealth as possible, so that in case he became an ordinary layman, he would at least be able to live a poverty-free life. Xu Fan replied that he would definitely be able to recover his cultivation and return to his deserved position. Now he definitely had no doubts that he was the protagonist. He should stay away from him. He took Shu Fang's hands. Ye Xiaoyao thanked for the comfort. When his story was heard by others, they just laughed at him. Even those who were weaker than him looked at him with contempt. He said he wanted to be friends with him, but Shu Fan was definitely against it. He finally flew away. Shu Fan wouldn't even be surprised if after rolling to the 3rd stage of Qi tempering, a wise mentor would emerge from his ring. An hour later, he finally found it. Ever since arriving here, he had intended to find a spirit tree suitable for building a ship. He wanted to cut down the tree with his sword, but he turned back. He was attacked by a huge beast at the 8th stage of Qi tempering. It is on him that he tries out his wares. The soul-piercing flying sword was the first item he had successfully forged. It is silent as a ghost, can kill stealthily, and can be flown. His sword touched the bear, which began to stonewall. Xu Fan turned around with a smile on his face as the beast was pierced by pain. He used not for embroidery needles, which were thin, almost elusive to the eye, and striking with a cold light. Now the guy hopes no one else will distract him from building the ship. The guy said that if heaven had not given Shu Fang life, humanity would be living in darkness. He labored for half a day, and now his ship was ready. He sensed that Wang Yulong was in trouble. He jumped aboard the ship, after which he flew straight to his friend. Wang Yulong and Mujin Qiangqiang fled. They were attacked by huge beasts. The girl asked if Shui Fan would be able to save them in time. If not, it's the end. She can use the secret technique of igniting her own spirit and blood. That way they can both get away from them. But the beasts were very close to them. Wang Yulong sped up to avoid being hit by their attacks. He said they have to wait a little longer. He has faith in Brother Su. He ate the acceleration pill. It was good that Shui Fan had once taught him the battlefield escape technique. It was true that it used up a lot of spiritual energy. The girl said that swallowing acceleration pills was not the answer. She wanted to use spirit and blood ignition. He thinks they're idiots. They're both in their early 20s, and they both have brain thrombosis. No one in their right mind would go after deadly bees. Even warriors at the golden elixir stage would bypass their habitat. Shui Fan used the eagle eye technique. They had noticed Shu Fang's spiritual energy. Now they are saved, but they were surrounded by deadly bees. Yulong apologizes for getting him involved. Shu Fan used the exterminating sound wave. After this sound wave, the bees began to die. Many bees fell from the sky to the ground, and in the sky was Shu Fang's ship. Hook grabbed Wang Yulong. They successfully escaped. Shu Fan didn't think that using this technique was so exhausting. It would take at least a couple days to recover spiritual energy. How much damage will he suffer because of this? He doesn't even have an appetite. He can't use spells that require spiritual energy yet. But those that require mental power are still available to him. Wang Yuelong woke up. He shouted, "That is it really the underworld?" Shu Fan replied that yes, it is. For setting his friend up like this, he would have to go through all the circles of hell. Unfortunately, not today, but one day, he would definitely have to. Wang Yulong said that he didn't die. His brother saved him and Qiangqiang. He turned to his girlfriend who hadn't woken up yet. The guy threw them a bottle. It was elixir. They were concussed by the sound wave, so their brain function is a little impaired. They need to take the elixir so they don't develop complications later. It's a first-rate sedative elixir. The net proceeds from a vial comes out to at least 500-600 spirit stones. Wang Yuelong thanked him for saving him, and this was already the second time. Xu Fan replied that he would pay for everything. His life-saving service was worth 20,000 spiritual stones, and the vial of sedative elixir was worth 2,000. Wang Yuelong replied that he would be his debtor for now. The woman's hand pinched Wang Yuelong's arm. The girl asked if he felt anything. Wang Yuelong jumped up and said that it hurt. She cried and said they survived. She thanked Brother Shu as well. He asked which one of them had the idea to provoke the deadly bees. Wang Yuelong replied that the original plan was flawless, but they were discovered. He had counted on the battlefield escape technique, but he had overestimated it. Shui Fan asked if he was to blame for all of this. He didn't care anymore, so he asked why they had even gotten to them in the first place. Their honey has unique healing properties, up to and including life extension. When Chang Chang's mother gave birth to her, they were at war. After giving birth, she went off to fight, and as a result, she fell ill with a chronic disease. He thought that if he could get honey and help her cure her old ailment, he could ask for Chang Qiang's hand in marriage. Shu Fan replied that he was a potential A-ranked martial artist of the combat branch. He asked if in his mother-in-law's eyes, he wasn't good enough for her daughter. Wang Yuelong said that she was very pleased with him, so she reduced the ransom amount from 2 million spirit stones to 1 million. Shu Fang called her a holy woman. He would only have to save up for 10 years. Wang Yuelong replied that was why he took the risk. He thought that if he gave her such a gift, maybe she would lose another 500,000. He remembers being extorted for a serious ransom in a previous life too. He threw him a leg. He asked if they had succeeded in getting honey or not. Wang Yuelong replied that they had, but they only got half of what they had planned, but he thinks it should be enough. Shu Fan thinks that since it's so hard to get, it must be worth a good amount of money. Forging has almost bankrupted him lately. He asked how much honey might be worth. The girl replied that 2,000 spirit stones per liter. He said to describe in detail where they got it. When there's an opportunity to make serious money, he's not going to be stopped by some bees. By a bamboo grove of deadly bees. The bee territory began ahead. He told the deer to hide somewhere. He called him a psycho and galloped away. Shu Fan said to the bees to welcome the guest. 3 days later, Shu Fan spun around in front of the bees as fast as he could. He tried to convince them that he was of the same blood as them. And of course he succeeded. This was the place he was looking for. These mountains of honey will enrich him. 100 liters is 200,000 spiritual stones. 1,000 liters is 2 million. If he sells 10,000 liters, he will be financially independent forever. But there was a queen bee. He said she had a pretty resilient psyche since she didn't succumb to the enchantment technique. Then he'll have to use something more serious. He used the mind paralysis technique, but his equipment was blocked. He has a message that these bees and their honey are the property of the Heavenly Throne sect. The disciples are allowed to take some honey as a reward, but in limited quantities, no more than 1,000 liters. His enrichment plan has crumbled. Cloud Islands of the Celestial Throne sect. The Palace of the Elders. One of the elders who was assigned to watch over the secret portals noticed that a disciple at the chi tempering stage was able to trick a swarm of deadly bees and nearly paralyzed a bee mate. He thinks he's worth the attention. The elder told him to stop. Shu Fan thinks he's a cheapskate. He only managed to collect 500 liters, but that's not bad. He'll get a cool cauldron, better forging equipment, and a lot of spell boards left over. He noticed Ye Xiaoyao flying. Apparently he also somehow got wind of the honey and figured out a way to bypass the bees. Shu Fang wondered how much honey he would be allowed to take. The elder shouted, "That is it now that every disciple at the chi tempering stage can reach honey. Those suckers are deliberately trying to piss him off." Ye Xiaoyao was pleasantly surprised that one could move quite well at the chi tempering stage as well. If he collects 10,000 liters and sells it at 2,000 per liter, he can ask his mentor to find a sage in the awakening stage who can determine what is happening to him. But suddenly a golden light covered him. He didn't realize what had happened. He saw a barrier that said the bamboo grove of deadly bees was closed to the public for the next 150 years. He too called the elder a stingy man. He asked if he wanted to be in conflict with him. If it were him, he'd be happy with what he had. Meanwhile, Shu Fan had arranged a tourist sky cruise. He started with a grove of deadly bees. Afterward, he visited the brook. After that, he flew to the Green Mountains, and then flew to the desert. Now it is located in the estate of the Great Master. The mansion of the Great Master of Alchemy looks imposing. There's sure to be a lot of interesting things in it. But he's looking for the runes. He seeks the manor of a Great Master Forger. It's an hour till the portal closes. As the saying goes, I tried to plant flowers and they didn't bloom. And in between, I stuck a willow branch in the ground, and it grew into a shady tree. Having failed to find the legacy of a master forger, he stumbled upon something better. This library contains a bunch of valuable spells. All in all, it was a successful outing. At least he would have something to occupy himself during the long evenings. He's been trying to invent a Call of the Beast spell, but off the shelf isn't bad either. With all-consuming sack, he doesn't need to save up for a storage ring. He didn't understand the waning moon spell. With the perfect intelligence spell, he can become smarter. But it's been a month and the portal is closing. He was automatically thrown out of the portal. He was very high up and falling down. Shu Fan used the body lightning technique. Wang Yuelong and Mujun Changqiang flew behind him. He shouted that today was a treat and suggested going to the Hop Monk Tavern. They owe him a debt of gratitude for saving their lives. Shu Fan was talking about the digestion spell. By using this spell, the food will be digested in an accelerated mode. The nutrients and spiritual energy in the food would be better absorbed and strengthen the body and the two. He closed the book. Shu Fan replied that since Wang Yuelong was giving him a treat, after a month of living in the wild, they could all use some refreshment. He would eat so much today that he would cover all the losses he had caused. The honey of the deadly bees managed to sell for a very good price. The medicinal ingredients were enough to make several cauldrons of first-class pills. When he got the auxiliary raw materials from Brother Pan Fu, he could try forging something more serious. Alliance location, Pang Fu said he sent everything according to the list. The invoice is attached and asked him to double-check everything himself. He had 10 full bags lying around, and the feathered courier delivery service was very tired. He sent 300,000 spiritual stones. He was shocked that it cost as much as 300,000 spirit stones. Now he can go into a bolt hole and forge until he's blue in the face. 3 years later, blacksmithing halls. And he failed again. He used to think that, given his talents, in 3 years, he would be able to forge anything he wanted with his eyes closed. Forging was a very wise science. He couldn't understand why the energy control runes and spirit amplification were rejecting each other. He realized something. If they do not get along with each other, then maybe they need a rune mediator. As a transit rune may be suitable, Cobweb. He tried again, and he finally succeeded. He's going to call this sword the Thousand Man. Even though he didn't forge it from the 1000th time, but 6 attempts is also a lot. He doesn't even want to count how much it cost him in spirit stones. A lot of news came to him. The forging department has started recruiting level 1 blacksmiths, which is related to fixing the main flying ship that was damaged in a collision with a giant sea beast. Guy thinks that he might be allowed to be part of the mending as well. He is a level 1 blacksmith himself. He also noticed that Ye Xiaoyao had killed a sect traitor at the golden elixir stage, but he himself was at the grounding stage. 3 years ago, he had degraded to the qi tempering stage, and now he was killing traitors at the golden elixir stage. But he himself had also developed to the 8th stage of qi tempering during this time. This growth was largely due to the digestion spell, and he had also internalized all the ancient recipes and spells from the great alchemist's manor. When he breaks through to the foundation stage, he can surely beat the enemy at the golden elixir stage. The spell Call of the Beast has become one of his favorites, because you can summon the spirit of a water dragon that has combat power already at the level of the foundation stage. And if he could find or make a suitable vessel for him, he would be able to bring his combat power to the peak of groundwork. In that case, he would already be able to fight back enemies a couple of stages stronger than him. He came home, the same couple came to him. He couldn't get away from this couple. He asked why they were so happy. Could it be that his mother-in-law had finally given in to Yulong's pressure? He answered that he did. On the 15th of next month, the most significant event of their lives would take place. Shu Fan congratulated them. Wang Yuelong told him to try the meat dishes and asked if he liked them. The guy said he did, and asked why they suddenly decided to splurge so much. They may look very nice, but he has no envy. He is destined to live until he becomes a great sage. He wonders if there is a woman in this world who deserves his attention. He told them to follow him. Wang Yuelong replied that it was now clear why Shu Fan had never shown him this room before. This is where his treasure trove is. The girl said that he is the most talented disciple of the sect. He knows so many techniques and spells, good at combat, alchemy, and forging. No one can compare to him. The guy replied that since he didn't have a wedding gift for them, he would let them each pick one item. The warhead and RPG he told them not to take, because they wouldn't work anyway. She asked if she could take the swords of insight. The white sword is responsible for the armor-piercing speed, and the pink sword can be used to create illusions and enchant the enemy. Wang Yuelong asked if he could take the 1000-year-old. During battle, It could split into pieces and take arbitrary shapes, greatly reducing the effectiveness of his opponent's defense. They said goodbye and told him not to miss their wedding. Not only had he wasted a lot of valuable raw materials, but also a lot of time in the making. But since he had accustomed them to his tutelage, he would have to bear it steadfastly. On the 15th of next month, he must be at their wedding. It's his first foray far outside the cult, and he needs to prepare. A month later, the Heavenly Throne sect. He was walking with a large sack on his back. Wang Yulong's wedding will be held in a city called Diding. It's 6,000 kilometers away from their sect. It's a good thing he has a private ship. Ye Xiaoyao appeared behind him. He hopes they're not on the same path. He immediately hid behind his huge sack. Ye Xiaoyao said that it had been 3 years since they had seen each other. After leaving the portal, he was going to find him and chat about past matters, but he couldn't find the time. But today, he met him again, which only proves that their destinies are connected. Zhuofan replied that he had already heard that he was now a true hero. He congratulated him. Ye Xiaoyao said that it was nothing. He asked if this was his ship. He came aboard. Ye Xiaoyao asked if this arrow clamp was made at the stern to increase speed. Zhuofan replied that he had found a rune in the portal to create an arrow press to make the ship faster. He told him not to waste his valuable time on trinkets like his ship. Ye Xiaoyao said that he was going to the wedding of one of their brothers. He asked where Zhuofan was going. Zhuofan asked, this brother's name happened to be Wang Yulong. Ye Xiaoyao replied that yes. So Zhuofan is also flying to him. It's great that they're on the same path. They can chat all the way. Ye Xiaoyao suggested we go on his ship. It would be much faster that way. They sped up. Ye Xiaoyao apologized for being sloppy. He had completely forgotten that Zhuofan was only at the QE tempering stage. He replied that it was no big deal. Zhuofan told him to stop getting more food, because the table would break soon. Ye Xiaoyao told him to eat more. This demonstrative friendliness is getting out of hand. They felt something, Ye Xiaoyao said, leaving him for a few moments. He needs to get rid of a couple of insects. He asked if they had completely lost their fear. They had barely had time to fly away from the Heavenly Throne sect, and they're already fucking around. He had exactly 5 balls of 5 different elements. It's starting to sound like obsessive-compulsive disorder. Someone appeared in front of their ship. Zhuofan knew that there would be dangers around Ye Xiaoyao. If he could go back to that day, he would definitely find a way to scare him away so that he wouldn't even get close to him. He knew he couldn't be friends with the protagonist. Ye Xiaoyao apologized for dragging him into this. These scumbags are at the golden elixir stage. He would distract them to himself and then send a ship with him to his destination. They came after him, so they were unlikely to chase after Zhuofan. He told him not to worry, because he would be able to fend for himself. Zhuofan thinks that he can't really fly on alone, because he might be caught up and finished off. Ye Xiaoyao had already killed 1 scum at the golden elixir stage. He would be able to finish them off as well. He used the 5 flames technique, the stranger asked, wondering if he hoped to scare them with this. But Ye Xiaoyao didn't pay attention to this and sent the ship out. The stranger ordered Lei Shi to catch up to that puppy at the qi tempering stage and finish it off quickly, then return. The boy said he understood. Ye Xiaoyao didn't want to let that guy leave, but his attack was blocked. The stranger said he wouldn't be able to protect his buddy. A voice in his head told him not to be nervous and to conserve his strength. Right now, it's better to worry about yourself. Ye Xiaoyao said that none of them would leave alive today. Zhuofan prayed that if the heavens gave him another chance, he would never leave the sect's territory again. But he was being chased by Lei Shi. He thinks this walk will be easy. This will be costly for Fang. He summoned a water dragon. The water dragon began to take possession of the wooden body. Lei Shi said that he didn't expect such a trick from a disciple at the qi tempering stage. Zhuofan suggested that they not mutilate each other and part ways in peace. He spent 5,000 spiritual stones to extract spiritual energy from them. This should be enough for at least 15 minutes. That guy rejected his offer and pointed his bug at Zhuofan. But the dragon crushed that bug. He wonders how Zhuofan was able to pump his spiritual energy to the golden elixir stage. He used the technique to give orders to the dragon, and that order was to kill him. An explosion sounded. Once Zhuofan returned home, he would make 10 more of these and never leave the sect's territory again. Lei Shi said that his cheap tricks wouldn't help slip out of the hands of a warrior at the golden elixir stage. Not in this life. He threw another insect at him. Zhuofan used gold element dome, fire element dome, spiritual light dome, and consciousness protection, but the attack still hit him. It was a mental defeat technique. He thinks he's finished, somewhere in the mountains. The girl asked her brother if the time would soon come when they could eat meat every day. The boy replied that right after the immortal celestial woke up. After all, Grandpa Changshan said that when they come out a celestial, even if they don't become celestials themselves, at least they will live a life of wealth and honor. And rich people eat meat every day, but from the looks of it, the nearest sumptuous meal is still a long way off. But Xue Fan had already scouted the surroundings with his unconscious perception. He could have fallen into the snowy peanuts somewhere and fallen asleep there to his death, but he was saved. He spent half a month battling a soul-eating worm in the astral. At first, he gnawed at his soul piece by piece, taking advantage of his weakness. It was only now that he had succeeded in finally destroying it. He called out to the children. Afterwards, he said they wouldn't get much of a tip for such a massage. Grandfather told the children that after the man from heaven woke up, let them immediately start beating their foreheads against the ground until he agreed to accept them as his disciples. After that, their lives could be considered settled. The boy asked to be accepted as an apprentice. He told them to stand up. The girl has 3 spiritual roots, the boy 4. By the standards of this world, they'd make cannon fodder at best. But nothing is missing from his 4 all-encompassing sacks. They are remarkably decent. He asked why they wanted to be his apprentices. They answered to eat meat every day. Such a response only confirms their honesty. He replied that there was one more thing left to figure out. Man's nature is unchangeable, and his test should show everything. If they pass the test, he will become their mentor. If not, he will still provide them with a trouble-free life. Now it's time for him to assess his condition. He managed to get rid of the soul-devouring worm, but it had managed to do some serious damage. It would take at least 6 months before his spiritual and mental powers would be fully restored. But he will make a promise to himself, 10 years of not leaving the cult, and stay away from the main character. He pulled a teapot and a cup out of the bag. When he returns, he'll need to make more battle dolls. For now, it's the most effective way to defend himself. Changshan's grandfather walked into the house. He bowed and called him a celestial. He picked it up. Xu Fan told him not to kneel in front of him anymore. He is his savior. It is Xu Fan who should thank him. He should be rewarded for saving him. He asked what grandfather wanted. He replied that he only wished that he and his wife would live to a ripe old age, free from sickness and grief. It was a very practical desire. He gave a vial of 10 longevity pills. If he and his wife took one every 2 years, it would be enough. When the children wake up, he would take them with him to the Heavenly Throne sect. He will take care of them there. Grandpa asked what was wrong with them. Xu Fan replied that he was only testing their potential. Now it's time for him to know the results. 2 blue orbs appeared in his hand. Although the boy has experienced different things, but the innocence of his soul remained unchanged. But a girl can achieve serious heights in cultivation. There's all the data for that. When they wake up, their lives will no longer be the same. Heavenly Throne Sect. Wang Yuelong blamed himself for what happened to his friend. He had always been so careful, never leaving the sect's territory. And the only time he had done so was to attend his wedding. The girl said that Xu Fan is even capable of breaking mountains. There's definitely nothing wrong with him. He's probably somewhere healing his wounds right now. Once he gets better, he will come back again. Wang Yuelong told her not to comfort him. In the entire time they had known each other, he had never once left the sect's territory. His first time was his last. He'll wait for him here until he gets back. Wang Yuelong prepared a red envelope for him. He must hand it over to him personally. The girls said they would wait for him together. Heavenly Throne Sect, Office of External Affairs. These children meet the sect's standards, so they were given identity plaques. From now on, they are officially Xu Fang's disciples. The boy asked if it was hard to become like him. Xu Fan replied that if they obeyed him well, the path of cultivation would be easy for them. And he likes this boy. Caring, responsible, and honest. And his naive questions only add to his cuteness. He asked if that meant he and his little sister would be able to eat meat every day. Xu Fan laughed and said, at least 3 times a day. Wang Yuelong sensed Xu Fang's spiritual energy. His brother is finally back. He immediately ran up to him and said that he was starting to think he was dead. Xu Fan replied that he was fine. The worst thing that happened to him was skipping their wedding. Wang Yuelong said it's nothing. The important thing is that he's alive. He asked if they were his children. Wang Yuelong said that he had managed to give birth to as many as 2 babies in 2 weeks. He wondered why they were so big. The girl asked him where he had ever seen children being born and growing so fast. Wang Yuelong replied that all sorts of miracles happen in their world. Maybe that was how they grew up on pills. Xu Fan told him to stop talking nonsense. He replied that these were his newly minted students and wanted to introduce them. But suddenly he realized something. He'd completely forgotten to ask what the 2 of them were called. The boy said they don't have names. In their village, as it turns out, they only give a name when they find a spirit plant. In honor of the plant, Shufan replied that they would carry on his surname. He named the boy Shuegang, and he named the girl Shu Yuexian. They thanked their mentor for the names bestowed upon them. Now that they're his students, we should dress them up. 2 pink balloons were near them. They are wearing new uniforms. Qian asked what kind of magic it was. He replied that when he had nothing to do, he made a closet ball. Inside it, fabrics are stored, allowing you to change your outfit in an instant. The girl asked to sell her one. She would pay with spirit stones. Shufan replied that he would give it to her. Afterward, he told her to try it herself. A pink dress appeared on the girl. Shufan told her to choose something else. Wang Yuelong closed Shuifan's eyes. The next outfit didn't fit either. She's tried on a lot of outfits already, Shufan said, unable to look at it anymore. He said he didn't understand anything about women's fashion, so she'd better experiment with the ball at home. Wang Yuelong said that they should celebrate his return and the acceptance of the first disciples. Shufan asked who wanted to eat something meaty. The girl replied that she did. Wang Yuelong handed him a red envelope. He said that Shufan should know what for. Shufan took the envelope. A few days later, the forge halls. It's still troublesome for him to be so talented. As soon as he recovered from the attack, he was already receiving orders from brother Peng Fu. But now he's got enough money to build an army of fighting dolls. There was someone behind him, the old man asked, ashamed of himself. At such a difficult time for the sect, when they need every blacksmith, he's fulfilling commercial orders. Now some powerful grandfather was also angry at him. Is he really going to have to live on his mountain without a trace now? He has been ordered to find at least one blacksmith skilled in engraving runes by tomorrow. If he doesn't, he'd better hang himself in the morning. He couldn't believe that, wandering down the street with his head down, he would come across such a treasure. His mission was accomplished. Shufan said that 2 weeks ago, he was attacked outside the sect and was on the verge of life and death. He had only returned a couple days ago and had to fulfill some urgent orders so as not to frame his brothers. Tomorrow he is introduced to the sect's assignments. The old man replied that since that was the case, he must have offended him. He asked what Shufan was forging today. He could give some instruction. Shufan showed a red box. He opened it. There was a sword. The old man said he was good at basic runes and his engraving was quite original. The tempering, smelting, and shaping is also on the level. The guy just has a lot of imagination. The old man doesn't want to overpraise him before his time, but there will be another great forging master very soon. He asked how many runes he was proficient in. The guy said 206. He told him to forget about the cult assignments for now. Right now he's taking him to fix their main ship. The old man asked if he had already been to the inner sector. The boy replied that he had never been. He advised him to prepare himself to see something unusual. Not right now, but when he says so. But there were monsters out there. The guy just couldn't believe when this grandfather managed to mess with someone, that these monsters were sent after him. To be in his company is even more dangerous than next to the protagonist. The old man told him not to be afraid, for the water dragons at the spirit fusion stage stood guard over their sect. The sect head caught them in the vast sea. They are just curious to look at a potential client. Shuifan asked about the client. He can do something for only 10,000 spirit stones. Shufan asked, wondering what exactly to do. The old man replied that to ride them is to ride them. The guy thinks riding dragons is not being with a call girl, so there was no need to whisper. He replied that he was not rich enough to spend such sums on entertainment. It would only be a couple of thousand years before he too would have one of these to guard his house. The old man replied that it was an unforgettable experience. He summoned Shufan to take care of repairing the ship's cladding and interlocking the damaged runes. They're in place. The payment will directly depend on the amount of work done, 1,000 spirit stones per square meter. In addition, he would teach him 20 new runes. The guy asked if he had runes from the category of spatial stabilization and crossing spiritual stones. He said yes. Since he had agreed, he should observe the work of others first. Soon, a blacksmith in the void mastering stage would come up to him and answer his questions. He flew up to the ship. He thinks it looks like a simple repair job. Only the clutching part of the damaged runes is interesting, and the rest is routine physical labor. A man approached him and asked if he was the newcomer who had just arrived. He asked if the guy was clear on the task and if he had any questions. The guy replied that not yet. He is ready to get to work. The man was encouraged by the fact that he figured it out himself just by looking at the work of the others. The man told him to work briskly. for the man's bonus depended on the speed of his work. He used a meltdown, and after that the fusion. The man wondered how the newcomer managed to work at such speed, especially since he was self-taught. There was no way to work relaxed, or else Shu Fan would soon take his place. 2 months later, it's finally over. It's like the ship is sparkling in all directions. Zhu Fan asked what they would do now that the ship's plating was finished. The man replied that nothing yet. The man said that a job that took 3 months to complete was completed in 2, thanks to the 2 of them. The people upstairs are very satisfied. Shu Fang's talent is obvious to him. It is possible that he will become a great forging master in the future. These 5 rune stones came to him by chance, but he wants to give them to Shu Fang as a gift. He hopes that when the boy becomes a great master, he can ask him to forge a divine weapon. The guy thanked him. He replied that the man would be first on the list. He too would still be 120 years away from laying the foundation. And by the time he becomes a great master, the man will be long dead. The Celestial Throne sect is much more amazing than he could have expected. They use half of the small heliocosm as their inner sector. Outer disciples rarely come here, but he should be able to find an opportunity to explore this place. It was that old man who brought him here all this time. He won't be doing that after the job's done. So he'll have to find a way to get in here. And somewhere far away from the Heavenly Throne sect, Wai Yuelong and Qian Qiang were fighting monsters. Wang Yuelong suggested that when they were done with this task, she could exchange the merit points she received for an embryonic pill. She asked if they might be better spent on getting him closer to the groundwork stage. He replied that he'd rather be on the pill. At the groundwork stage, he'll show up on his own. It's better to invest in a child. When he's born, he'll be apprenticed to Brother Zhou right away. Then their child is guaranteed to become a genius. There's another wave of beasts coming, and it seems there are a couple of them in the groundwork stage. If there are more than 2 such beasts, they will be in serious danger. The girl checked, there are 3 such beasts there. The guy said that they couldn't retreat. The other disciples are still defending the node points. If they don't hold the defenses in this area, the labor of hundreds of students will go to waste. There's only one way out. He has to use the emergency balloon he bought from Brother Zhou for 10,000. He threw the ball and said goodbye to the 10,000 spirit stones. The balloon opened up and punches started flying towards the ground where the beasts were, after which they began to explode. Wang Yuelong said that Brother Shu might as well have warned about the powerful shockwave. He said that how great it would be if Shu Fan was also in the battle branch with them. The 3 beasts at the foundation stage would be finished off with a single wave of his hand, and he wouldn't have to spend 10,000 spirit stones. The girl replied that everyone had their own aspirations. He's already learned so much from Brother Zhue, and his martial training isn't even half as good as his. Wang Yuelong replied that she found someone to compare with. He is a unicum, and Wang Yuelong's training is excellent. The girl said that the next time they meet, for him to ask his brother to spar with him. They will see if he lasts longer than 3 seconds. The guy replied that she was underestimating him. He might last all of 5. Wang Yuelong noticed something. He looked at the green light and asked what it was. There was a huge green rock. The guy said that judging from the color, smell, and density, it was an iron ore enriched with spiritual energy. With enough enriched iron, you can make armor that will allow you to fight on equal terms with the enemy at the golden elixir stage. He tossed her the pouch. He would go down to extract the labor for now. If beasts in the groundwork stage suddenly appeared, he told her to use it against them. The girl replied that it was fine. He asked Brother Shui why he suddenly decided to move. The guy said he's got students. We need to move to a bigger house. In fact, it was because the big order he'd placed for Panfu's brother came from the protagonist. If he wants to work without intermediaries next time, he'll come to him. He showed off his newest creation, the Armor of God. He was only able to make it with the enriched iron ore they had mined. Wang Yuelong said it was beautiful. Now you can go on dangerous missions wearing this armor. He guarantees that no creature below the golden elixir stage will defeat him. Wang Yuelong asked, "These armors only have defensive characteristics." The guy said to put them on, and then he would evaluate what characteristics they had for himself. He snapped his fingers. The armor started to put itself on the guy. Comfort and reliability in one bottle. The girl said it was really his style. Shu Fan said that these armors were made up of 16 separate elements. They can increase spiritual power by 2 to 3 times, provide protection from physical and mental attacks. It could be switched to attack mode at the right moment. She said fire on the Hulk, but he made a mistake and then corrected it to fire on the beasts. Wang Yuelong was delighted. He noticed that the speed was also incredible. He said it was a miracle of blacksmithing. Now, even a beast at the peak of groundwork would not be afraid of him. Shufan replied that the decision to bring the enriched rota to him, instead of the market, was the right one. Wang Yuelong thought that Shufan would be owed for such valuable raw materials. But now it was Wang Yuelong who owed Brother Shu. He has a request for them too. Due to his excellent performance during the repair of the sect's main ship, he was given the opportunity to go on an expedition. These expeditions can last for months. He wants to ask them to look after the house and his students. The girl said he was helping them so much they'd be happy to do him a favor. The boys said they would never repay him for anything. That's the least they could do for his kindness. They began to complain that their old brother had changed so much, he was already being called for expeditions. Although they are in the combat section, but it is not known when they will grow up to such a thing. The guy replied that this is a really unique opportunity, except he has a bad feeling about it. How he hopes he won't be there. Yulong asked who was giving him trouble. He really hopes that his premonition seems false. A month later, he showed his boarding token. There was a ship flying overhead. One day he'll be sure to build himself an equally gigantic ship. He began to come aboard for other students. Behind him was Ye Xiaoyao, who asked where he had disappeared to. He moved and didn't even inform him. Foul language flowed from the guy's lips. He replied that he was already supposed to call Brother Ye an honorable brother. After all, from what he heard, he is already at the golden elixir stage. Fan knows that meeting this guy will not end well. Ye Xiaoyao said that they are longtime brothers, almost relatives. Shufan wants to get off the ship, maybe it's not too late. Ye Xiaoyao asked if he could find a decent cabin for his brother. The man replied that if he was with him, he could stay in the cabin to his left, as it was not yet occupied. He'll give Shufang a tour of the ship first. In the evening, the supplies will be loaded on board. Then they'll have dinner and a few drinks together. The boy already knows he won't be able to get rid of him before he sails. In the evening, in the dining room, he was sitting at the table. Fan decided to pretend to go to the bathroom. Ye Xiaoyao sat him back down. The voice in his head was telling him to find a way to handle Fan. After all, it would bring many benefits. His immortal insight was not wrong. Brother Ye Scala that these spiritual food dishes are of the highest quality. Even the sect leader himself and praises it. Zhufan said that this order must have cost a lot of spirit stones. He struggled to try to smile. Ye Xiaoyao replied that it didn't cost him anything. The meals are free for the crew members. Shufan asked how he had dealt with his strange ailment. Ye Xiaoyao was touched that he still remembered it. When he returned from the portal, his ailment had simply disappeared, and he immediately found that he was at the foundation stage again. The first thing he did was to go to the family of the girl who had broken off her engagement to him and beat up all her brothers. Broken engagement, another protagonist hero template. He thought that in this way, he would wash away the shame of breaking the engagement. But that girl had gone to apprentice to an illustrious master, and had also reached the stage of laying the foundations. She's done him in. Shuifan thinks that he should have swayed a couple of stages above her and only then go all out. But this situation only fueled his fighting spirit. Let her mentor be at the Mahayana stage. In 3 years, he will be so pumped up that he will return all his grievances to them many times over. Fan said that he was sure it would be like this. Ye Xiaoyao said that he was the only one who understood him. From now on, he would consider him as his named brother. Their friendship would be eternal. Shufan wanted him to get off his back, for he was drunk. He said his brother must have had too much to drink. He asked to be excused. He still had things to do today. Ye Xiaoyao asked what more important things he could have to do than swear eternal friendship to each other. The boy replied that while repairing the ship's cladding, he'd noticed that the most important runes were located on the inside. He decided to undertake this expedition in the first place to study them in detail. He ends up wasting his time drinking wine with Brother Ye. The drunken Ye Xiaoyao's brain didn't even know anything about runes anymore. Someone approached him from behind and put a hand on his shoulder. The man said that he didn't expect someone at the Qi tempering stage to have such a keen eye. He asked if he had any desire to go to him as an apprentice. Shufan turned around at the man's voice. He said he had all the makings of a great blacksmith. He asked how the guy ended up on this ship, as well as which branch he was from. Shufan replied that he didn't belong to any branch. For now, he was on his own. A man asked if he would like to be a part of the forging department. He thanked the man for the offer. But he's actually a level 1 alchemist, and he's only interested in runes out of idle curiosity. The man was angry that it was another alchemist. Blacksmithing is what should make a man passionate. The The guy wished him well. If he joins the forging department, he won't be able to enjoy the free life he has now. He won't even be able to make pills in secret. And when he still hadn't broken through to the foundation stage decades later, he would simply be considered a disgrace. Ye Xiaoyao said that it was a great happiness to be called by such a serious master to be his disciple. The guy didn't realize what a bad habit it was to sneak up from behind. He'll give him a heart attack one day. Brother Ye apologized. He just had such a tragedy in his personal life. If he didn't want to apprentice with him, one could just refuse. He asked why it was necessary to make up that the guy was an alchemist. Xu Fan replied that he really was practicing both alchemy and forging. This wasn't a common occurrence, so he didn't talk about it so as not to raise more questions. But he wouldn't stray from the path of dual cultivation. He would succeed in both crafts. He decided to go for a walk around the deck. Master said that this guy was definitely not simple. He told him to fraternize with him. After all, it would do Ye Xiaoyao good. The guy saw a huge snake. It was said from behind him that this serpent was nicknamed Cloud Eater. When she first saw it, she too was absolutely amazed. It was Sha Yan. Xu Fan asked if the girl had gotten a boyfriend. She told him not to say anything stupid. This is her older brother. He's from the forging department, a level 1 blacksmith. She also introduced Xu Fang, an outer disciple who has great success in both alchemy and forging. She overheard him in the dining hall saying that he wanted to study runes on the ship. Her brother could help with that. He reached out to his brother and thought how great it was that he turned out to be her brother and not her boyfriend. He shook his hand. His name is Sha Diao. He refused to follow in his father's footsteps and pursue alchemy, so he left home to study forging. He was shaking all over. They asked what was wrong with him. He could barely contain his laughter and ran away from them. He started laughing on the bed and said he would have a hard time at his school with a name like that. That came out a little rude, but he'll explain when we meet. But suddenly the ship began to shake. An announcement has been made that the ship has entered the waters of the endless sea. All hands must be on alert. It was a breathtaking view. Warships with artillery are what should arouse a man's passion. He wanted to see those cannons in action as soon as possible. Shadio said that they think alike. This is what real men should forge. Guy thinks to himself, does everyone have a bad habit of sneaking up and suddenly starting a conversation? He can still forgive his sister for that, but he needs to quit. Xu Fan apologized for leaving so abruptly at the introduction. It was just a thought that struck him. He wished he could write it down as soon as possible. He replied that he understood him. If he didn't grasp the thin thread of inspiration, it could slip away irrevocably. He asked how Xu Fan thought, for perhaps fate had brought them together. They both gave up alchemy for forging. He also asked if he wanted to share his thoughts. Perhaps through discussion, they would bring it to a finished state. Xu Fan said that there was nothing special there. He looked at what kind of runes he had. If he understood Xu Fan correctly, he was trying to create a means of remote communication. These runes that could be linked with ordinary spirit iron. Without external support, the devices could only be linked within a distance of no more than 100 kilometers. The guy realized he was onto something. He said that's not all. He showed the runes that were on the outside of the device. Brother Sha doesn't understand. The guy will give him time to digest everything. Sha Diao started muttering something under his breath. He shouted that he understood. He took his hand. The runes along the contour form a structure that enables the transit of transmitted information. With enough transit nodes, you can link the device over much longer distances. He didn't even realize how cool that was at first. He called him a true genius. He came up with a rune structure that not everyone would think of. Something began to glow brightly on the ship. A quick beam launched itself into the wave. The Gold Patrol fished out a huge whale. Brother Sha said it's a light but big catch at the beginning of the expedition. That's a good sign. In the waters of the vast sea, it's a giant shelf whale. From the looks of it, it's in the void development phase. It's definitely a great catch according to Brother Sha. True, its meat was dangerous for them. Such a beast could only be eaten at the golden elixir stage and above. But the guy thought about the fact that these cannons were incredibly effective. One shot and a beast at the void mastery stage was dead. Sha Diao asked if this was the first time he was seeing the cannons work. He will soon get used to it. They are only auxiliary guns. If they meet the behemoths at the crossing or Mahayana stage, that's when it will be a spectacle. The main cannons from the 9 warships will fire on them. In the future, he just has to build himself a fleet. He asked how much it costs to fire the auxiliary cannon in spirit stones. Shadiao said that it's not only spirit stones that are spent, but if you do the math, it's about 100,000. That's a paltry sum. If you sell the whale for parts, it would be at least 500,000. He'd have to work for a month for one shot. And a shot from the main cannon costs the same 500,000. But they are only used for beasts not below the crossing stage. The guy doesn't even want to estimate how much money he'll need for his future fleet. 3 days later, in a few days, he realized that blacksmiths were the most valued here. No effort is spared to cultivate them. Just based on the fact that he was on this ship as a novice blacksmith, he was sketched out resources for at least 30,000 spirit stones. Brother Shah called out to him. He told his mentor about his idea. He is very interested and wants to talk to Shufan. The guy thinks he shared his secret with him as a friend and he ratted him out. He doesn't want the attention of another mastermind. They were standing in front of the blacksmith's hall. The boy thinks, judging by the door, that it's not very spacious inside. Shadio attached his pass. The difference in size between inside and outside is unimaginable. He thinks that some special space expansion runes were used to build this room. Mentor's chambers. The mentor asked if he was the young man who had come up with the original method of remote communication. Shufan introduced himself and replied that he was. The mentor said he had a very lively mind. He calculated the possible realization of the boy's idea. If 36,000 transit devices were installed all over the continent, it would be possible to cover the entire continent with communication using his rune structure. The communication devices they already have will even work for this. And if they are slightly modified, it is even possible to make an attempt at dialogue with an optical image. The guy realized that the grandfather wanted to communicate with his grandchildren via video link. Mentor has offered to become his apprentice. He has the talents necessary for a blacksmith. The boy doesn't understand why all the old men are drawn to him as mentors. Shadiao tells him to rather agree. His mentor is one of the best masters in the forging department. Even the sect head holds him in high esteem and respect. They will become brothers in the branch. The guy replied that he didn't want to waste his time. He was on the path of dual cultivation and wouldn't be able to devote all his energy to forging. Apparently, the mentor was angry. But then he just laughed, which surprised the guy. He said he liked the boy's sincerity. He asked whether he was more interested in alchemy or forging. The guy replied that, of course, forging is. After all, only forging can arouse a man's passion. His mentor said that if he wanted to become his personal apprentice, he would transfer him to the inner sector. But in order to do so, he would have to give up alchemy. The guy texted him something. The old man replied that he understood what he meant. He gave him a token to get into the inner sector and invited him to visit when he had time. The boy thanked the master. He's gone. Shadio said that he was still very young and not yet capable of realizing what he was giving up. He asked for forgiveness for his impertinent behavior. His mentor said this young man was destined for great things. It's a pity he won't have a hand in it. The have a passionate conversation with Grandpa achievement has been earned. Maybe now he can marry a pretty girl. Sister Shah is very mature and attractive. Little Yun is smart. Maybe he won't have to choose just one. Someone yelled to look ahead. A storm seemed to be brewing. They deployed a protective hood. There is a large wave of various sea beasts ahead. Combat danger level B. All ships were commanded full ahead. Zui Fan shouted that could it not be possible to move more carefully. The ship is turning around. Another beam struck the wave with the beasts. The clouds parted and there were dead beasts in the water. The guy realized that after slaying all the beasts, they were heading out to search for resources. Ye Xiaoyao said that places where beasts dwell in large numbers are usually rich in resources. There is probably a spiritual mine nearby. And if he was lucky, he might even be able to find some divine relics. Shui Fan recognized that when he sneaked up and started talking. Sometimes it was good to hear it. Especially since he had already started to get used to it and was no longer frightened. He apologized for that time when he drank a lot and passed out. Shui Fan replied that it was no big deal. He asked about the relics. As it turned out, it was still possible to find relics in the vast sea. Before ascending to heaven, many great warriors spend their last kalpa in the boundless sea. Therefore, their abodes can be found in the boundless sea. Shu Vong should take the time to find and loot a couple of such abodes. Almost an entire city has sprung up. Shu Fan asked where it came from. Ye Xiaoyao replied that it was one of the divine relics found in the abode. It seems that they will stay here for at least a month. He took his hand. The boy wonders why guys take his hand so often. Ye Xiaoyao said that with his boarding token, he would have access to the major establishments in the city. For the next month, he'd better live in it. If he gets bored in the city, he can send out a treasure hunt or join a group of hunters. Or he can just do some forging or alchemy. The main thing is that he should not go further than 500 kilometers away from the city. Now he'll have to find a place to live here too. They've landed. Shu Fan thinks it's fate. The first person he sees when he arrives in the city is Sis Sha. Morning, Zhenghai City. Sis Sha said what a coincidence. He confirmed her words. The guy was grabbed by the arm again. Brother Sha suggested renting one blacksmith shop for 2 people, because by repairing equipment, they would be able to earn a few $100,000 each in a month. The girl said that if he didn't want to forge, they could do alchemy together. So many interesting ingredients had been brought up from the seabed. He said her offer was great, and he almost gladly accepted. But then a man came up who said she had nothing to do with blacksmiths. It was their daddy. She said goodbye to them. Brother Sha asked if he was going to go with him to shackle or be idle, as if the boy had a choice left. In the blacksmith's workshop, Sha Diao said that it would have been great if they had met earlier. In his 10 years of practice, this was his first partner he was so pleased to work with. The guy can't help but say the same about him. A girl walked in on them. She asked if they repaired alchemy cauldrons. The boy wondered why there were so many beauties among alchemists. He poured tea for her. Shu Fan asked if she was practicing alchemy. The girl replied that she did. She had only taken one spare cauldron with her on the ship. The main one was torn apart almost immediately, and yesterday the spare one was cracked as well. If she is left without a bowler at all, she will not be able to perform her direct duties. She asked if they could take a look at her bowler and fix it if possible. The boy noticed that she had a soft and pleasant voice, a real treat for the ears, especially when she was begging for help. He replied that no problem and asked for her bowler. He can fix it. It will take 50 spirit stones. After the underwater mine was discovered, everyone on the ship was given some ore. He said to give it here too. He began to fix it. He also decided to reinforce it on his conscience. After all, it was an order from a beautiful girl. He said it would become her most profitable investment of 50 spiritual stones in her life. Her hands trembled as she looked at her bowler. Shu Fan said that she had forgotten the rest of her ore here. But the girl has already run away. The guy wonders if he's really that scary. A month later, they have been forging and forging for a whole month without a trace. The decision to travel so far from home was not easy for him, so he wants to make the most of this expedition. Brother Sha replied that if he wanted to, he could walk around the city and he could stay to work. He did not think at all that, being in the vast sea for the first time, he would surely want to see something interesting. Xu Fan immediately ran away after hearing his words. He was on his flying ship. One beast was at the golden elixir stage. The next one was also at the same stage. He thinks that site looks relatively safe. It was time for an expedition of our own. He used stealth runes. In a previous life, it would have cost him a lot of money to go underwater from an observation submarine as a tourist. In this one, he's his own scuba diver. Half an hour later, the boy noticed that it was a little dark. You could see nothing at all in the distance. Based on water pressure readings, it is 50,000 meters below sea level, and that means it's time for a treasure hunt. He took the optical navigation night mode module, the living organism detection module, and the spiritual energy measurement module. He saw the huge monster and his soul almost left his body from fright. It was chasing after Yi Xiaoyao. He asked the grandfather swordsman if he was sure he needed to kill the hulking thing. The man told him to call him the immortal swordsman emperor, but the guy kept calling him swordsman grandfather. He said this swordfish is a real find. Its backbone is like a naturally created sword. If it was taken out, tempered, and shaped, it could be a first-class divine weapon. Such a sword can absorb energy from the surrounding metals. Ye Xiaoyao said that this is something he realizes himself. But right now, she's hunting him, and he's running away like a game. There's no way he can beat her. The grandfather swordsman replied that he wasn't just suggesting it, he had a plan. There's a friend of his nearby. He said to swim to him, and when he gets there, let him fight the swordfish with all his might. Shu Fan will help him. Ye Xiaoyao said, "It doesn't even look like a plan. He is only at the QE tempering stage. If something goes wrong, both of them will die." The swordsmith grandfather said not to underestimate Shu Fang. The guy should trust his insight. Once he obtains the backbone of the swordfish, his technique can be used to turn it into a divine weapon in just 50 years. Now it's time to put their friendship to the test. He pulled out the pearls. Shu Fan thinks he's a genius. From an ordinary deep-sea oyster pearl, he will make a bracelet to store items. Enriched with spiritual energy, he will use it to produce super armor. He had that familiar feeling of an impending some very unpleasant situation he might soon find himself in. He decided it was best to get the hell out of here. But, of course, it won't work out. He was pushed back by the waves. He heard Ye Xiaoyao's voice calling out to him. He asked for help to help him. Shui Fan immediately guessed that it was that guy who was the culprit behind this feeling. Ye Xiaoyao stepped aboard his ship. He said there's a swordsman outside. He's almost dead. Zhu Fan must finish him off. After all, he needs his backbone. He'll reward the guy when he's done. He thanked him in advance. After that, he fell down, and Shui Fan stared at him silently. Zhu Fan shouted out what other thanks in advance. He hadn't agreed to anything yet. He sighed. According to the classics of the genre, anyone who crosses the protagonist or refuses to help him is soon off the stage. He figured he'd finish him off real quick. He swam out from his boat. It's not that Swordsman's golden elixir stage is an invincible opponent for him, but he'd rather not leave his cozy sub. He threw his attack at him. Taking advantage of the monster's distraction, he swam around it. He began to swim around him as if he were playing with him. There was no way Swordsman could keep up with him. He used a myriad of spears, a 360-degree blind spot for the enemy. But that fish is nowhere to be found. She was behind him. Then he realized that that monster also had a concealment technique. He used a strong shield, a heavy water shield, and a thick water shield. But the fish hit him anyway. Monsters wondered what those silver balls were. They were his fighting puppets. Most of his battle dolls are wickedly unsuitable for water combat. However, it's a great distraction. He used an external cloning technique. By gathering spiritual energy from the surroundings, he can make doppelgangers. He needs a little more time. Crystals began to appear from behind the monster. It was time for him to come out. He used crystal formation, a hurricane of ice daggers. The crystals began to freeze the monster. But the fish didn't give up so easily. Shu Fan said the fish took too long to figure out what was what. That's what killed the monster. The swordsman is dead. All of his mercury ball snakes died in just one gathering. This venture cost him 80,000 spirit stones. The swordsman's grandfather recognized his fighting talent. If he were a stage higher, he would have killed the swordsman in no time. Chopangabuya Xiaoyao appeal. He's awake. Ye Xiaoyao apologized. He shouldn't have brought him into this. Even he was powerless in front of the swordsman. He asked if he was all right and if he was injured. Shu Fan replied that he was fine and told him not to worry. His sword is in this pouch. Ye Xiaoyao said that he was so good after all. He wondered how he had managed to deal with such a strong opponent, even though he was weakened. Shu Fan said that they were friends, and he couldn't do otherwise. Ye Xiaoyao replied that he noticed that he still didn't have a storage ring. He gave him his own, which holds up to 333 cubic meters. Shu Fan said, feeling so embarrassed. A storage ring with such a volume could only be forged by a master who was fully proficient in space expansion runes. You can't buy such a thing at the bazaar. But something started happening again. They suddenly found themselves on dry land. If Ye Xiaoyao's intuition didn't fail him, they had moved into the small chiliocosm. When they get out of here, they should report this place to the management. They would not be rewarded for such information. This place looks long abandoned. Perhaps it had already been looted many times before they arrived. They can talk about the lost profits later, but right now, there is a threat looming over them. Shu Fan asked Ye Xiaoyao if he had the strength to fight. Ye Xiaoyao told the swordsman grandfather to report the situation. They entered the small heliocosm created by a single swordsman at the crossing stage. Tai Xiaoyao could leave this world after fully recovering. He checked. It is possible to find the swordsman's legacy items in this world, but they are damaged and only have research value. Ye Xiaoyao said that the legacy was not bad. The swordsman grandfather replied that it would take 10 days for him to recover. In that time, he should try not to die and ruin his brother Shu. He replied that his strength had not recovered yet, so they had better find a place to hide. Shu Fan said that it was too late to hide. We should run away. They started to leave on Shu Fang's ship. Shu Fan said that there are more and more of them. He asked Brother Ye if there was any way to get out of here. He has a wise mentor, so he should at least ask him. When he's fully recovered, he'll be able to find a way out, but that will take 10 days. Shu Fan said that he would protect him all these 10 days. Ye Xiaoyao told him to fly there. There is the dwelling of one great swordsman in that side, and his legacy was supposed to be left inside. The guy thinks that he should participate in his ascension again. He hopes that nothing will happen. They flew to the great swordsman's dwelling. Ye Xiaoyao said that they needed to go to that heritage hall. They flew in quickly. The voice said that he was a Yunsheng swordsman. In his humble abode, they could feel at home. He would be happy to share the items of his heritage with them. Perhaps their fates would cross in the greater heliocosm, and they could become friends. But they were busy with things and ignored him completely. The birds were already here, but it's a good thing they had time to clean it all up. They managed to fly out of there. Zhufan said that most of them are at the QE tempering stage, some are at the dream laying stage, and a couple of the giant birds are at the golden elixir stage. He said that the ship would start to shake soon, but Ye Xiaoyao should be patient for a bit. He called in his birds. That's who the monsters will have to fight. The swordsmith grandfather said again that this guy is not simple at all. His ingenuity is amazing. Ye Xiaoyao asked if these were unusual, odd-looking battle dolls. Master said that they have intelligence. Of course, they are not as good as living people, but they can provide serious support in battle. The doll with a mind prepared to shoot. There was a huge explosion. Ye Xiaoyao said that his dolls are marvelous. In their village, they are at the foundation stage. He asked if he could make a golden elixir stage battle puppet. Zhufan replied that making such a doll required the corpse and soul of a beast at the spirit birth stage. He asked if he needed such a doll. He would give him a 25% discount. One doll would only cost him 290,000 spirit stones. He wouldn't bring him everything ready-made for free. Ye Xiaoyao replied that he was broke right now. As soon as the money appears, he will come to him right away. Zhufan said that he will wait for him. He thinks, what kind of protagonist is he if he is a beggar? This challenge is too much for his level. 5 days later, his puppets at the groundwork stage all broke in battle. He felt sorry for his hard-earned money. Ye Xiaoyao replied that he only had 5 more days to hold on, and then he would recover. Zhufan replied, telling him to recover his health and take his time. He was filled with resentment and indignation at these monsters. Zhufan used the technique of killing the feathery creatures altogether. Ye Xiaoyao was simply shocked by this. He wondered why in his time, being at the key tempering stage, he didn't even come close to being able to do anything like this. Yes, he couldn't even do this at the golden elixir stage. He asked his mentor if he had ever met anyone at the QI tempering stage that was tougher than his brother Zhu. The swordsmith grandfather said that he had already encountered such a person on his path. Zhufan would be able to give battle to an enemy at most at the golden elixir stage, but someone could destroy an enemy at the spirit birth stage. Ye Xiaoyao couldn't believe that someone at the qi tempering stage could destroy an enemy at the spirit birth stage. Such a unicum would have kicked his mentor's ass after a couple of stages. I wish the guy could take a look at him. The swordsman grandfather replied that he would definitely meet him. That's who the kid needs to get back at. Or rather, who he should get revenge on for his mentor. Ye Xiaoyao replied that he'd better take it to Brother Shu then. Against his background, Brother Ye was just trash. The old man said that he didn't need to be so modest. Their meeting was the will of the heavens, and one cannot argue with the will of the heavens. There's something wrong with Zhufan. Ye Xiaoyao was immediately worried. Zhifan shouted that did this dumb chicken really think that she was beyond him? Reflecting her psychedelic sounding attacks isn't that hard. But the guy marveled at the twisted threats this creature had in her head. But now the birds decided to move a little farther, specifically on personalities, which really pissed the guy off. Now he's going to show something that the bird probably won't be able to survive. His cannon completely ripped the bird apart. The other birds were in complete shock at this. He asked how this bird liked his kernels. He decided to give them a refill. Ye Xiaoyao said that when he broke through to the foundation stage, he could beat him up too. The mentor said that when it was time to take revenge, let him take this guy with him. The old man didn't doubt him anymore. 5 days later, Brother Ye was already ready. They broke the barriers and finally got out of there. After that, they arrived at Zhenghai City. Ye Xiaoyao thanked him for saving his life. All of Zhufan's loot could keep it for himself. Ye Xiaoyao asked for a copy of the swordsman's legacy to be made for him. Zhufan told him to take the whole thing. This area does not pique his interest, and in case of anything, he will turn to him. Ye Xiaoyao replied that he didn't even know how to thank him for all of this. What a long time the guy had waited for him to utter that phrase. Zhufan said that there was a question that had been bothering him for a long time. Perhaps, as a more accomplished cultivator, he would know the answer to it. Ye Xiaoyao replied that if he didn't even know the answer, he would help him find it. He wants to know if there is a 13th stage of qi tempering, or is there definitely a breakthrough to the next stage after the 12th stage? The mentor said that Ye Xiaoyao can't know the answer to such a question. Does Zhufan know of its existence? Ye Xiaoyao replied that before the ships return to Zhenghai, he will give an answer. The guy is well aware that he himself knows nothing about it. He is counting on his hidden mentor. This trip has made him realize that stomping around in the QE hardening stage for decades is not an option for him. 4. Ye Xiaoyao asked the swordsmith grandfather if there were qi hardening stages higher than 12. He told him to address him normally. Maybe he would reply. Ye Xiaoyao asked the great divine sword emperor to reply. He replied that such things depend on the will of heaven. In ancient times, werewolves ruled the world and humans were their slaves. They didn't allow people to develop beyond qi tempering. As soon as someone broke through to the foundation stage, they were immediately killed. People lived under such conditions for tens of thousands of years. People had been developing a system to circumvent the restriction of their cultivation for years. This is how the qi-quenching stages of 24 and 36 steps came into existence. After reaching the 24th stage of qi tempering, one could leap over the foundation stage and immediately break through to the golden elixir stage. And being at the 36th stage, one's cultivation level would correspond to the spirit birth stage. Ye Xiaoyao asked if the 108th stage of qi tempering corresponds to the Mahayana stage. He replied that logically, yes. But the heavenly will of this world does not tolerate such tricks. He would not advise his friend to attempt such a detour. Cultivation itself is an attempt to rise higher than one has been destined to go. In other words, ascension was a challenge to the heavenly will. The 24 and 36 step qi tempering system was only approved because the human race had no other choice. And if he went against the heavens in the current situation, he would be in trouble if he reached the final stage by going around the paths. The closer he gets to the heavenly realm, the more pressure he will be under. Ye Xiaoyao said that there was no way to evolve above the 12th stage without breaking through to the next stage. The swordsmith's grandfather said it was very difficult. At least he doesn't have the techniques to do it now. If he were at the peak of his powers, he could cut a corridor through time and search for them in antiquity. At the same time, Juifan sneezed. He had a kind of uneasy feeling in his heart. His moodiness and anxiety are so tiring to him. He wonders how his students and Wang Yulong are doing now. After all, his friend is a chronic loser who can't cope without his advice, and he will need a fortune to rebuild his army of battle dolls. 10 days later, the fleet returned in full force. All students were told to leave the city and return aboard. All the students started flying toward the ship. The city has shrunk. Shadiao asked how he was doing and how his walk was. Shufan said not to bring it up. He wanted to ask if the expedition took different routes each time. Shadiao replied that the vast sea was so vast that it would be foolish to take the same routes. With such a fleet, anywhere on the vast sea would be safe. They have enough resources to repel the attack of any monsters. Shufan replied that the flying ship was a marvel of engineering. It would be great to know in detail how objects of this scale are made. Shadiao said that the ship is good, but the sect that created it is very arrogant and unpleasant. Shufan said that he understood his feelings perfectly. Those who have the best technology in some field have tremendous power over the market and customers. Shadiao was deeply convinced that Shufang had a unique talent in forging. His mastery of engraving runes, ingenuity, and pursuit of perfection are all enthralling. The boy has only one ambition, to get home, and everything else is petty. He said to promise him that one day, Shufan would lead the blacksmiths of their sect, and together, they would build a ship even better and bigger than the current one. They would make such a ship that could fly outside the heavenly dome. Shufan replied that he was overestimating him. He wasn't capable of such a thing. Even if he could, by the time he succeeded, Shadiao would definitely not be alive. But Shadiao was confident that he was capable of it. His mentor said that 100 years from now, he would be considered a legendary man who had the biggest impact on the world of forging. The guy is certainly pleased that they think so. Except their expectations are based on the ignorance that 100 years from now, he'll still be at the qi tempering stage. Shufan asked if there was any progress on his invention. He just needs to urgently change the topic. Shadiao replied that after they returned, they would be able to put his development into practice. Perhaps one day, everyone in the sect would have a means of communication on their hands, and the guy would be rewarded handsomely for it. In the future, the various information transmission devices already in place could be discarded and replaced by his universal communication device. All the disciples will be able to communicate with each other over it, accept the tasks of the sect, and report on their fulfillment. If his development becomes widespread, maybe then he can improve it and add an online store. If he builds AliExpress here, he can close the issue of chronic shortage of spiritual stones forever. Something caught his eye. He used his vision and saw that there was an island there. Shufan asked what kind of island it was. Shadiao replied that it was not an island, but the top of a tortoise shell in the Mahayana stage. He asked if Shufan had ever seen sea acorns. They live by attaching themselves to the surfaces of rocks, plants, and to giant turtles. They are especially delicious in this region. You can probably already order them from the canteen. They were wished a pleasant appetite. They were so sharp that the guy was probably already using profanity. Sha's sister and the girl who came in with the cracked cauldron joined them. He hardly recognized her in her new outfit. Sha Diao asked where their dad was. Sha Yan replied that his favorite bowler had exploded. Now he wasn't even in the mood to leave his quarters. Sha Tia began to scoff at the fact that the third-grade alchemist's cauldron had exploded. He thought of going over to him and troll him a bit. The girl replied that with his cultivation level, it was better not to. In that state, he could easily have him hanging from the ceiling by his ears. Another cauldron appeared in his hand. He told his sister to give him this. He was unlikely to go to the blacksmith's himself for repairs. Have her say she traded it to a friend. The kid has a father too, but he never got around to using that stick. He promised that if the boy did something like that again, he would hit him so hard with that stick that he would be on all fours. The girl's name was Qian Qian. She was the favorite daughter of the combat branch mentor called Voivode. The girl said that after fixing it, her bowler was better than before. She thanked the guy. Zhu Fan asked, and how she was going to thank him. Qian Qian replied that when they returned, she would take the bowler to the market stall for appraisal and pay him the difference. Ka Yan asked if he was flirting with her sister. He should be careful with her. After all, she was the favorite daughter of the warlord's mentor from the combat department. Anything happens, and she's afraid to even imagine what he might do to him. He had once met a voivode. He especially remembered his axe. He blunted it on purpose, not to chop, but to break the bones of his enemies. Chen Jian said to stop saying stupid things to her, because it would embarrass her. The guy had two choices, Sha Yan or Chen Qian, but he found a third option. Pick all of them. Sha Yan said they had fooled around and that was enough. She just admired her repaired cauldron and brought her to him so she could thank him again. Zhui Fan said that it was nothing. He only spent a little bit of spiritual energy, and she brought the raw materials with her. The guy realized it was best to stay away from her if he wanted to live longer. But suddenly he felt that something was wrong with Wang Yuelong, the subordinate area of the Heavenly Throne sect. There were women chasing him. One said that she and the girls only wanted to show him something. The other asked why he was running away from pleasure. He'd have to report it to his superiors as soon as possible. This neighborhood is under their sect's jurisdiction, and the werewolves are at home here now. The girl asked if he didn't like her. Maybe he would stop and watch her in detail. He was surrounded. Some werewolf girl tied him up. She asked him if he still had any tricks up his sleeve. She told him to show him what he could do. She's willing to sacrifice a couple of sisters to have him. The guy said that if they killed him, the cult members would find out very quickly, track them all down and skin them. The girl only laughed. She asked if it was okay to kill such a handsome man. They need him alive. She called him to them. He and his sisters would give him a real paradise on Earth. He was already stupefied. Shufen knows that his friend has often been in deadly predicaments, but he always managed to survive. It seems that right now he's in trouble. When he gets back, he'll probably be able to get him out of this shit as usual. 3 days later, Ye Xiaoyao said that the matter is like this. In ancient times, there were cultivation techniques of 13th stage Kui hardening and above, but they are all lost now. In addition, he had been told that it was better not to even attempt such practices, or else he would incur the wrath of the heavenly will. And then everything would end badly for him. The guy thinks there's no point in him lying about it. Xu Fan replied, asking purely out of curiosity. Not even for himself. Yi Xiaoyao said that he was relieved. As soon as the guy gets home, he's going to look into it. If such techniques existed, he'll get to the bottom of it. Ye Xiaoyao said that as a thank you for saving his life, the answer to his question would not be enough. He decided to treat him to the best sea acorns and also get drunk. Xue Fan said, "It's those acorns again." A month later, Xue Gong and Xue Yuexian were glad that their mentor had finally returned. The boy asks if he can take them with him next time. He promises that they won't give him too much trouble. The girl said that if they are not around, no one will take care of the mentor. He flicked the boy on the forehead and asked if he'd even practiced here while he was gone. The boy said his sister could confirm. The girl replied that her brother had been practicing hard all the time. He took her by the ponytails. Xu Fan asked, "It's not like she didn't deceive him to brush off her brother." Xue Yuexian said that Aunt Qianqiang said that she had grown up and was no longer a child. You can't pull her pigtails anymore. Xu Fan replied that he would defer to her in this matter. He's already changed his mind, though. The girl kicked him in the leg, but then she said she hated him and grabbed her leg. Xu Fan called her a sissy. The guy didn't realize how good it felt to be back home. He told the boy to call Uncle Yulong and Aunt Chengcheng, for they would give a banquet in honor of his return. They talked merrily around the table. Xu Fan painted Shuigang's face. Shuigong said that with a mentor in the house, you can relax and sleep with your eyes closed. Xu Fan replied that they are full and sleeping. They also say that they are no longer children. Now he turned his attention to them. They must have been desperate creatures to dare to inhabit his friends. The werewolf asked if he wanted to come over to their side. When they were done with their business here, they could leave him in charge of the continent. Xu Fan asked if it was very ambitious. He didn't care what their plans were. They dared to inhabit his friends, which meant he'd have a short conversation with them. If he won't do it the easy way, then he'll do it the hard way. Xu Fan asked, did they understand anything about him from Wang Yuelong's memories? Did they really think that they could defeat him with the armor that he had designed himself? He replied that there would still be time to get to know each other better. He wouldn't have long to persist. A huge eye appeared behind him. It was like he was transported to another space. A girl showed up and called him her husband. She rushed into his arms. The girl said that the food was already on the table, and that she had prepared water for bathing. She asked if he wanted to eat first or bathe, or he wants to get right down to the sweet stuff. The guy replied that if the sweet tooth was her, then he would choose the third option. She lay under him and said he was so impatient. The girl said she missed him so much, but of course, Xu Fan didn't fall for it. As it turns out, he attacked them with enchanting spells. That was their thing. Xu Fan asked why they had stopped. He had planned to watch the performance without intermission. Using his technique, he freed them from the werewolves. Wang Yulong immediately woke up. He thanked him at once. He had saved them again. Wang Yulong said that when he was captured by the 3 fox werewolves, he thought of killing himself. But he remembered that no matter where he got into trouble, the most important thing was to return home alive, and his friend would definitely find a way to help him. At that moment, he abandoned his plan, and he was right to do so. Now he'll see what they've done to him and give them back his suffering double. He knows a lot of torture spells. Wang Yuelong said that there was no need to stir them up. They were already in his hands, and he just needed to destroy them. Xu Fan replied that it would be too easy. He is his brother, and he should avenge him to the highest degree. He learned about the war between the 2 worlds and the werewolf invasion. Although the passage between the 2 worlds was held together by the efforts of several sects, a group of shapeshifters, who excelled in mind-altering and brainwashing techniques, were able to cross over into their world. Well, here he found another memory of Wang Yulong. Xu Fan apologized. He had no idea that they had bullied him so cruelly. Wang Yulong was already starting to panic. Wang Yuelong told Qiang to explain everything. By then, they already had full control over him. It was no longer him. But the girl didn't want to hear anything anymore. Xu Fan threw him a balloon and said that he would get a reward for them. Qiang replied that they wouldn't scandalize in public. They would talk at home. Wang Yulong said that he would be rewarded and bring him every last spiritual stone. How did Brother Xu set him up? He didn't expect such a thing from him. Xu Fan replied that he could keep everything. He should notify the leadership as soon as possible, because in a short time, the werewolves would know about the failure of their outing. Borderlands Werewolf Hideout. The werewolf hideout barrier was destroyed. The man said he felt sorry for them. Not a couple of days later, they were discovered. He wondered if their chief should have sent more congeners. The werewolves wanted to self-destruct, but a man won't let them do that. It would be unfortunate to lose them. He said the werewolves still dream of reviving their hegemony as it was in ancient times. He asked if they still didn't realize who was now in the role of hunter and who was in the role of game. 1 year later, it had been 14 years since his arrival in this world. During this time, the memories of a past life went nowhere. On the contrary, each year they evoke an even more acute sense of longing. He needs to chase those destructive thoughts away. Sooner or later he'll find a way to go home, but depression won't get him any closer. The familiar chill ran through his body again. It was the protagonist. Yi Xiaoyao said that his friend Wang Yuelong was telling everyone that there was no better blacksmith in the sect than him. He needs help. Lately, he's been studying the fluttering dragon sword formation. The guy thinks that his buddy not only can't keep his mouth shut, but he also gave out his home address to the protagonist. Xu Fan would greatly help Ye Xiaoyao out if he took the time to do so. It had taken him so long to break through to the spirit birth stage. His friendship with him is a loss, and he still has the nerve to ask for him. He misses the times when he first met. Back then, his mentor hadn't popped out of his ring yet, and he'd gotten more out of it than he'd lost. He replied that forging 36 flying swords was a troublesome endeavor in itself. and since they are needed for the same formation, they must all be made of identical material. He couldn't do that. Mentor said, "Don't listen to him." If he wanted to master the fluttering dragon sword formation and take revenge on the fiancée who had abandoned him, he needed to be more persistent instead of mumbling like a wimp. Or he worries that when he ascends to heaven, he will remain forever in unpaid debt to him. Ye Xiaoyao said that he was not a freeloader. He found this box among the ancient ruins. There must be something very valuable in it. It's his now. Shufan replied that since it was so important to him, he would help. A little later, he would write a list of the materials Ye Xiaoyao needed to bring, and then he would get to work. His mentor called him a fool. If he threw away such treasures left and right, he would ascend to the heavenly realm with nothing. He had better learn from his cunning comrade. It's the first time the guy's ever seen runes like that. He's not gonna lose this time. He saw the rock that was behind him. It was a girl. Shufan told her not to turn into such an ugly boulder anymore. You can see her a mile away with the naked eye. She yelled about how many times to tell him not to grab her pigtails. She wrote that today was the 29th time her mentor found her using the transformation technique. He noticed that she is not trying so hard for nothing. She is making good progress. He told her to go inside. The girl asked if he really discovered her because the boulder turned out ugly. Xufan replied that when she succeeded in deceiving her mentor's eyes, she would realize what her mistake was. In the meantime, she should keep trying. He liked the tea. The girl noticed that sometimes the expression on the mentor's face did not correspond at all to his stated age. He asked if she had brought anything interesting from the assignment. The girl replied that she had. For this piece of willow, she sacrificed the rest of her prey. Shufan replied that due to the lightning strike, a natural thunderstorm rune was imprinted on this piece of wood. He will keep the rune, and he has made a pill of life force for her out of pieces of willow. In case of a mortal wound, she must take it. The girl thanked him. He asked where her brother was missing. She replied that he had gone on a mission with Uncle Wang. Shufan said that when she meets her brother, let her tell him that sometimes the excessive desire to be quicker leads to the opposite results. Uncle Wang is an example. He's been doing his best for so many years, and he's still on the second step of laying the foundations. They're finally back. Shufan began to mock him and asked what a warrior in the foundation stage could possibly want in his shabby hut. Wang Yuelong replied that there was no need for that. It was a sore subject for him. He found a very unremarkable spiritual ore in one beast's lair and brought it for expert evaluation. Shufan said that sometimes he was good for him. He was thinking of killing him this morning when he heard him yelling about him all over the place, and even gave out his address to Brother Ye. But since he brought him such a thing, Shuefan would spare him if he told him exactly where he found it.